So with the golf, I was represented Australia with Jason Day, and then just went into a really dark spot. At that stage, I felt like I was a failure because I literally had got to this point where, what have I done? I've just wasted 13 years. On the outside, it looked like I had this dream job because I was getting paid playing golf, and in my internal stuff, I got to a really bad spot. So went to some drugs and alcohol, and went just racking up 20 grand credit card bill. And that's when a girl gave me a book, Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. It literally said, you can change the way you think in an instant. And I was just like, fuck.
Louis Fuller is an
ex-Australian golfer, musician, business owner, and
student of life who channels his curiosity to all things health, spirituality, and
the future of the modern world.
We can actually live 30 days without food. You could live a couple days without water, maybe longer, but without the breath. 5 minutes without the breath, you have brain damage and you're dead. So that's when I started going into the breath work and realising it's one of the things, like if you're just laying in bed and you're feeling shitty, you're feeling depressed, you don't want to get out of bed, but you just tell yourself, fuck off, Louis, I'm getting out of bed. I can guarantee you, if you get out of bed and you have a cold shower, go for a walk, get some sunshine on your skin, and your emotions will be better, and sometimes it's 25% better. The younger generation that I'm talking to now, from even like the 19-year-olds and the 17-year-olds, they're asking a lot of questions on why is the world like it is, which is so good because you got podcasts, all these things. It's not filtered.
That's a weird feeling for someone that's never really done that before.
That's awesome. I wasn't sure if you've done any breath work or not, so I don't specialize in it. I'm not qualified, but I'd love being able to teach it and then put it into my practice with my clients.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I've played around with, like, I struggle with falling asleep a lot of the time, mind racing, work stuff, ideas, want to do this thing. You're 24, you're kind of like, oh, what the fuck's going on in the world? And but I've never really like done it properly, I feel like, as well. Like, you've tried that box thing, and then when I'm laying in bed, it seems to have just, like, whether my mindset going into it as well, it's just like caused more stress because I feel like I'm worried about, was it 4 seconds? Was it not 4 seconds? But like, that was, I think also being led doing it is the big difference, because I could just, I guess, like a better words, be a little bit vulnerable in the fact that I could just sit there and just do as I'm told, which I think makes a bit of a difference as well. I don't know whether that's something you notice.
Absolutely. There's a lot of good breathing apps out there, XPT, Othership. There's another one that I listen to, but the breathing through someone guiding you through, you're there, like you said, you're vulnerable, but you're just sitting there listening, and you can participate and you don't have to either. But then when you do and you just listen to that, and then you don't have to think about, am I counting for in to two? You're just going to listen to Louis say inhale or exhale. And then as soon as he says that, and he's not even counting the beats either. So then you can go into, it definitely has a different point of difference, because that monkey mind isn't trying to work out, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing either? So it's the thing about the breath. I've been going down that road for a few years now. And I've been doing, the fasting, and the thing was what really woke me up, I think, was like with the fasting, I've researched, fasting. I do intermittent fasting, got the Full Liquid Gold brand, got my bone broth and the detox stuff that I do. But with the food, like you're lean and fit as, and you probably live 30 days without food. Like, it's a long time. And, you're lean, you don't know what percentage body weight you are, but, you're very lean. And you eventually don't want to do that because you probably get really scrawny. You'd be like 50 kilos, but you'd still be alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
So, don't recommend doing a 30-day
sound like
fast.
fun.
But that's biologically, we can actually do that. We can actually live 30 days without food. Then it goes back into water, and then it depends how hot it is. You could live a couple days without water, maybe longer. Depends, like I said, how hot it is, how much you're sweating. And then you go into, and then, even sleep, without a few days of sleep, you end up going psychoactive, and, you start tripping out. But without the breath, 5 minutes without the breath, you have brain damage and you're dead. And I remember someone saying that, and I was just like, wow, like, it's such a big thing, because it just made me appreciate, I breathe unconsciously, which we all do, which is an amazing thing that we can do. And I never really stopped to think about, wow, if I couldn't breathe and I was underwater. And my dad was a diver. He was an abalone diver. So I've been familiar with diving and breath holding and stuff. But that's when it sat with me. I'm like, holy shit, like 5 minutes, you're dead. Food, water, irrelevant. No, 30 days to 2-3 days, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So that's when I started going into the breath work and realizing it's one of the things, like food digestion is, we don't think about digesting our food. We'll eat it and it does it automatically.
So
and
it's
it's
involuntary sort of.
Absolutely.
things,
And like the blood flowing through our veins, our heartbeat, we never think about a heartbeat. It does it. Exactly. It does it automatically. So we're so very grateful for this amazing organism that we are, this 50 to 100 trillion cell organism that we are. And we don't have to think about a lot of these things. Through the breath, we can do it unconsciously. And we've been, just me talking right now, I haven't been thinking about breathing and it's just been doing it. But we did it consciously just before, and it can change your state of mind and it can detox you. It can put you into this super enlightened state and very, wide focused adrenaline state. And it also can put you into this very relaxed, really chilled state through. And I think of it as a drug, as imagine having this drug that you can do just through a different technique. So we're doing the same oxygen in and out of the breath, but we're doing it just a different technique. You got the fire breath, the hyperventilating hold, and you feel like you're going to pass out. We're super charged up. And then you do the really slow double exhale lengths to the inhale and chilled out. And then you can have and you can put yourself to sleep. So it's like chemically wise, it just blew my mind too. So it just, that's what I love about the breath. And it's not something, like I said, I don't specialize it. I haven't done many breathing courses, but I've dived deep into a lot of books and dive deep into what works for me. And then I've been able to pass it on to other people. And it's one of these amazing things that you don't stop to think about it until, just explaining it. Then I like to explain it to people like that. And then people are like, no shit, I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean, just for those listening, that obviously we've moved the breathwork into a separate video. So if in the description on YouTube, but it'll also be at the end of the podcast if you wanted to proceed with that breathwork that we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Is breathwork, are these things, is it something you're using on a daily basis? Is that you use the first one in the morning, get yourself ready to go before a workout, big bout of work, whatever it may be, and then you use the box breathing to try and calm you down before sleep? Is that something you're doing consistently?
Yeah, great question. I do this every day, mostly every day. I can't guarantee I'll do it every day, but I'll have a infrared sauna at home, and I love doing the breath work in the sauna. Just gets me centered and detox. It's like those hyperventilating breaths are really nice for detoxing. And I'm a really good sleeper. I'm pretty tapped into that. If I'm trying to, struggling with sleep, and you mentioned that before, like having the double exhales and that really low exhales and just counting. And that's when it comes back to like the old school counting sheep. It's because your monkey mind's doing something and you're in bed and you're trying to think of shit, I've got this on, I've got this podcast, I've got this person coming in, I've got this client, shit, have them prepped, blah, blah, blah. And then with at least with the monkey mind, that's what I love about counting that for sleep, is doing that, in and if you can go in for like 5 to 10 seconds, out for 20, that's 30 seconds is an inhale and one exhale. And then you really get into that. So don't usually do that for sleep if I need to, but I do like the conscious breathing through, in the sauna. And then I mentioned to you, there's through the nose. I'm really into the nose breathing. So, we've got two nostrils, and the thing is with nostril breathing, if people get blocked up, they think, oh, well, I just got to mouth breathe. But there's different techniques to do that, and there's another technique where we won't go through it now, but you exhale, and then you hold your nose, and then you move around. And you literally move around and keep it in as long as the exhale is fully gone, and just keep moving around. And then when you get that breath hunger, open up your nostrils, make sure your mouth's closed, breathe in, and it will open up that nostril. And it might only open it for 15 seconds, 30 seconds, but it will open it up and help you with the conjunction and if you have a sinus problem. So that's just one of them. But if you breathe through your mouth quickly, like it's really easy, and it's a bit of chest breath. If I do that through the nose with my mouth closed, it takes a lot more energy and a lot harder to get in. And the reason is because of 50% restricted through the nose. And the good thing about that is when you breathe through the nose, you go into your naturally diaphragm. Babies do it fantastically. I've got an 18-month and I've been sort of witnessing her breathe through her nose, and it's just naturally through there. And because their mouth are closed, and they just naturally, like, it's awesome to watch. And then when you breathe through the nose, you're actually getting 10 to 20% more oxygen through into the diaphragm to the lungs, and then that goes into the oxygen. The oxygen goes into the blood. So the way I look at it is you're getting bang for buck, 10 to 20% better result through breathing through your nose.
And it's cleaning the air as well, isn't it? That's why we've got hairs in our nostrils, that they're cleaning of the dirt and everything in the air, whereas through the mouth, that's not a thing. It's the natural path of the sinuses and things like that you're supposed to, the mouth is for eating and the nose is for breathing.
Yep.
I'm assuming one of the books maybe you're going to reference is James Nestor's Breathe, maybe?
That's one of them. Yeah.
That's once again, when I heard a few podcasts from him, that was something that I've tried the nasal breathing in training. And I find, like, out of jiu-jitsu, for an example, in a stressful state where you got to do trying to, like, choke you out, being able, to some extent, you can't always do it, but to some extent I find if I can maintain that nasal breathing, I'm much calmer and make better decisions in that moment. Whereas when I start to, I feel like my panty sort of breathing comes from my mouth, and that's where I'm like, brain's not working. Decision making, boom, down. It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I can just see it then when you did, and I'll do it now. Like, you can see that's all chest,
lift up,
and it is anxiety. That's all chest. There's no oxygen, and then you try and do that with the nose. I can't. Like, it's hard for me to get that chest up. And then going back into the nose breathing. The one of that books, was Breathe. The other book is by Patrick McKinnon. He's got a book called The Breathing Cure, and he goes into just it's more chasing that air hunger through the breathing through the nose, but also the way train as well. And it's funny because I've seen a lot of Instagram stuff with the mouth tapping and all that's been coming out quite, and it's another marketing thing which is awesome, making people better. I read one of his books, The Oxygen Advantage is another book by Patrick McKinnon, and that was through the nose breathing, and I started doing that about 3-4 years ago, and it really it was something different because I'd run and I always mouth breathe, work out. So I did that for a while, and then it just sort of last few years of having a kid and all the things going in, I sort of forgot about it. So he had another book out, The Breathing Cure, and then literally the last 2 weeks I've been deep into back to mouth taping. And if you wake up with a moist lips and they're not dry, then you're already naturally doing it. But I'd say majority of people probably aren't doing it, and it's not a fault of their own. No. It's just that you're not aware. But you think if you sleep and you've got your mouth taped for 8 hours, if you're having a good sleep and you're getting 10 to 20% more oxygen in your body, you're going to wake up 10 to 20% fresher. Yeah. And I've noticed that myself. And also going back to even like and when they do that, saying it's like a less chance of getting crook because they've got all the hair follicles and everything in there. It's like it's nearly like a mini antibiotic going in because there's all the germs aren't going through your mouth and your tongue back to your throat. It's going through your nose. So that book was it's an amazing book because I've been last couple of weeks I've been diving deep into nose breathing, and it's made a massive difference to me, and it's nice. Just had a mental blank.
I've had plenty of that.
Going back into the nose breathing. So back to Patrick McKinnon. He's obviously guru with that nasal breathing, and it's made a massive difference to me. So if I can share something with people, and if they want to try this, it's something that if you've never tried it, have a crack at it because my performance is better. And that's, sorry, lost the chain of thought. I was going back to, now I'm running as well, doing some long distance running and doing the nasal breathing. And the trick is not pushing yourself to the extent where you fully can't, you have to breathe through your nose. And if you go too hard, just do a couple of mouth breaths and then go back to nasal breathing and back off the distance of, and if you're doing sprints and stuff, yeah, definitely you go back to mouth breathing when you need to, because you know, if your heart's going 160, 70 beats per minute, like good luck trying to do your nasal
it's full
breathing.
exertion. Like, and that's what I was saying with jiu-jitsu. Like there's a point where you go, yeah, there's a dude squashing me. My heart rate's up.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's the thing, isn't it? So there's a time and place for it, but it's it's been very interesting. Me going back, like I said, we did some breath work before, and then I'm back into the nasal breathing, and I've been it's just nice to share something that people might be able to take, and you know, if you're struggling with, and if you're the people that do have, you know, struggling with nose breathing, it's really good to go down this road, because it's gonna really help you out. And there's a lot of science behind even like your teeth alignment and jaw. Like if you've been a face, if you've been a mouth breather for a long time, your jaw's open and your teeth aren't sitting nicely next to you. And I'm lucky, I'm not sure if I did nose breathing when I was younger, but my teeth are really good, luckily. But your jaw sits because you're nose breathing. But if you're not, your jaw's open and it's not aligned, and then your actual jaw gets sunken in a little bit too. And you'll see a lot of people like, you know, with bad teeth and, you know, and their chin tucked in a little bit. And you could nearly guarantee that mouth breathers, and it's not a fault of their own. They didn't know what they didn't know, but it sucks. But you can
probably comes like childhood, teenage, and you go, well, there's 18 years until. So yeah, of course you're going to be locking in some of those things as well. Like, and it's unlikely that you're going to have huge changes to that sort of structure then after that. Like, it's the years of where it happens, they're gone. So important to then get it out there now, so that you can, you know, if someone's a parent, if they're whatever, they can be, you know, reinforcing this amongst their kids and things like that as well. Or if they're a teacher, saying it at school, whatever it is, whoever you come into contact with, like reinforcing that as well. Yeah,
and it's just another motivation for, you know, to have a crack breathing through the nose and doing some exercise, sleeping with it, and just see if it feels better. Yeah. And then physically, jaws, you know, better jawline for the women and male. You know, it's you're stronger, your teeth are more lined. It's just another motivation. Yeah, for all that.
I think it's pretty amazing, just in general. Like, shows the depth of which the human body has adapted over time as well. Like, obviously we've talked about a lot of, say, even our discussion at the gym the other day around like medicine and things like that as well, and trying to like reintegrate some of these more natural remedies, I guess, as well. But then this is also what you can do without having, if you're, you know, a bit worried about some of those other things and you're a bit more mainstream, it's like, well, this is your body. It's not going to hurt you. And you can start to do some of these things as well and experiment with them. And you never know what, you know, path it might lead you to as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So what's, speaking of those other things that you kind of obviously experiment with, like we talked about in the gym, you're obviously very much into some alternative medicines. You've got your bone broth, you've got all these other things. You're very health focused. What are some of your like key sort of triggers in the past that have led you down this path? Or is it something that you've grown up with and you've always been this, you know, very experimental sort of person when it comes to your health?
Yeah, I going back to I was playing golf at a very high level, like for Australia, and then nearly professionally. And so I think that led into when I was 13 through to 18. That led me into trying to get the best out of my golf game. And then when you get to like, Sepp Sarza, doing good at the state, and then doing good at, you know, at the state level and then Australian level, then you're like, oh, like if I'm representing Australia, like, geez, I'm, you know, decent. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I'm half all right.
Yeah. How can I make this better, and how can I get better? Really, that's the thing. So with the golf, I was represented Australia with Jason Day, who was world number one a few years ago. He was my Australian team partner. If people into their golf, they'll know who his name is. So I grew up with him. He was my Australian team partner, and then that road just led me into going down, trying to better myself as much as possible. And then that led me into going into, I had some struggles. The golf game, my golf went backwards. I had a falling out in the short story, because I've got a couple of long stories in the other podcasts that we can reference as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've done the full story of Louis Fuller, which will be on there. So this is the short story. So had a falling out with the coach, and then wasn't getting the results I wanted to, and then just went into a really actual dark spot. So I'm 36 now. My birthday's at the end of this month, so I'll be 37 the end of October, and so that's when with golf, that was over 15 years ago now. So that was a time where I was in a really dark spot, and because I put all my eggs in one basket, which is just golf. So it was like, if PT like yourself, or if someone's a teacher or whatever profession you've got, and you've worked literally from the age of 13 to, like I was as nearly 15 years ago. So I'd put a lot of 10, 12 years of shitload of energy into this, and I didn't get the results I was wanting to. So at that stage, I felt like I was a failure, because I literally had got to this point where what have I done? I've just wasted 13 years, because literally, like, I was sponsored. I was getting traveled around Australia, around the globe. I didn't have an income because I was getting sponsored. That was a financial thing. So, I didn't even finish school, got no professions. So on the outside, it looked like I had this dream job, because I was getting paid, didn't have to work, playing golf, and in my internal stuff, got to a really bad spot, So went to some drugs and alcohol, and went to a 6 month just racking up 20 grand credit card bill. My wife at the time was my girlfriend, and she was still there, but it was she was lucky. She was very supportive and got through. And then it was for me, it was hell. And it was like, it wasn't suicidal thoughts, but it was like, what am I doing with my life? I feel like I've failed. So it's just a bunch of synchronicities, and I'm quite a spiritual person. I've always been, but I sort of was blocking it out at that stage. And that's when a girl gave me a book, and she was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And I hadn't really heard about Toby Robbins at the time, but it literally said you can change the way you think in an instant. And I was just like, fuck you. You don't know what I'm going through.
No, you can't.
I was just that resistance. I was like, this is not happening.
So how old were you at the time? Low 20s?
Sorry. So 10 years ago. I've said 15 years ago twice. So sorry, guys. 10 years ago, I'm 36. Yep. I'm making myself older than I am. So 26. Yeah. Yep. 10 years ago, 2015. Yeah. Yep. And then end of 2015. So, and I was 26, so 2 years older than you are now. Yeah. So, and I'd gone through my things. I tried to go professional golf, which didn't happen. And then it literally said, right, 10 things you're grateful for. What are you happy about? What are you excited about? Who loves you and who do you love? And there's a few other things on there. And then the next morning, I was like, all right, I'm gonna just write these things down. I was like, oh, fuck you. This is not going to happen.
I'll prove you wrong by trying. I'll do the thing and show that it doesn't work sort of thing.
Absolutely. So I was trying to prove him wrong. So I started writing them down, and I'm happy to live in Glenelg. I'm excited about, I get to go for a walk today. My wife loves me, I love her. My family loves me, I love her. But I'm grateful for this pen so I can write down. All these little things. I'm grateful for all these little things. I'm grateful for the sun for giving us life. And in that moment, I had this epiphany. I was just like, holy shit. Here I am thinking I've wasted my life. I'm 26 and I am so fucking lucky to be alive. And it was like, I'm getting chills just like talking about it now, because I must come back to that moment. And it was one of those moments where I was just like, perception and just making, something bit of a change, and exactly what that Tony Robbins, exactly what he said is like, you can change in an instant. And from that comment, it must have just gelled in at that time. And I was sitting there and I was just like, holy shit, like mum and dad would do anything for me. Kristen's here. I live in Glenelg. I'm in Australia. I've got food. I've got 20 grand debt, but I could ring up my best mate and he'd pay for it. Like it was just, and so that just got me on this road. I'm like, holy wow. So yesterday I'm in the same house and I'm just like drinking booze and doing all these things, thinking my life's shit. And now I'm like, I've got an opportunity to live my life to the fullest and be someone. And it was literally, it was hard, but I changed and I set some goals, and it was get comfortable with being uncomfortable at that time. And the other thing was to say yes to every opportunity. And at that time, it's exactly what I needed. I don't know where I come from those goals, but that's what I did. And going back to your question, that's where the bone broth took off. I make some wine up in the Barossa Valley, and I just went into super biohacking. I was barista at this cafe. I went on X Factor and made like top 30 with Guy Sebastian, and it was all these because things were coming to me and they were saying, do you want to do this? And then I said to my wife, I can't do that. And my wife's like, nah, you said you got to say yes. And I was like, oh, damn it. And that's the barista stuff. The someone's like, do you want to make coffee? Because I got an epic coffee machine at home. Let's make coffee. I was like, nah. And they're like, nah, opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I went on this road of, so that was 2015, 10 years ago. It was 26. And it was just like going down this road of just, and then it got too much where I was saying yes to everything. And Kristen's like, we got to my wife, Kristen, we got to just rein it in a little bit.
Everything to some extent, can you? Like,
and it's still hard to say no. But there's a lot of things that have come out of that. And gone into, I feel so grateful and so blessed to have the life I live now. And that we all get curveballs thrown at us, and everybody has stuff that gets just absolutely thrown at you, and it's just how you deal with it. And everybody has a story, and that's where I always come from with my health coaching is everyone's got a story, and they're acting the way they're acting is because something's happened in the past and they're trying to deal with it and they're expressing to it right now. So just have patience with it. And if you can get on their level, just listen to them and just literally sit there and listen to them, they will open up enough to you can get into their world and be like, wow, I didn't realize his brother just left home and he was his best mate, and then he did something, or I didn't realize his mum left, or I didn't realize his dad was beating him up, or I didn't realize that they're financially this and that. And then you get to know their story, and then you have compassion for them. You can sit there on their level, and you sit there and you're like, wow, I understand you, man. Fuck, like, all right, yeah, let's, what can we do to help? And then that's where I always come from, that compassionate view, because no matter how people are acting, there's a story behind the story.
Yeah.
And I don't condone some of those acts that people do, and it's might be beating up or abusing or verbal or whatever it is. But when you can get into their head, then if they get heard, they feel like they're getting held. And then you can have a conversation, and then that conversation might lead into them changing, and you could literally change their paradigm and then change their world, and they could become a fucking amazing person.
Yeah. I think it's powerful as well, is that while there's those situations, there's those things that have happened, and you can't deny some of those events. Say for you, it was the golf or whatever it may be. It's like, but also a lot of what was happening was in your head. Because if it did change in a day like that, you sat there and you wrote these things down. Like, there were these other things out there right in front of you, but maybe you had you'd shut them out, sort of thing, because you didn't see a world without golf or whatever it may be. And it's so amazing that you can make that shift. And so for anyone that is kind of blocked up in that state right now, it's you genuinely are those things are there. Those options are there. A lot of those things you're sitting in your head are kind of not man-made by yourself, but they are maybe exaggerated by yourself a little bit as well.
Absolutely. And the things that you think of are always so much worse than you think they actually are. Like if you're predicting something in the future, at that time I wasn't even predicting in the future, because I was just going fuck, I've wasted. I was looking into the past. So I was just going into this realm of, my life's fucked. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, if you're looking into the future, a lot of the things are, you know, when you think something's super, you know, put something on a pedestal, listen to your podcast, and, you know, there's a nice quote you said. I'm not going to repeat it because I'll butcher it. But like, if you have something on a pedestal and you're looking at it and it's so good and you're like, oh, you know, when I get there, I bet you when you get there, it's not as good as what you think.
100%.
It's always in your head that it's like, you know, it's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then, but that also is the same with the worst. So you're like, oh my God, I've got to make this speech and there's going to be 50 people that listening to me and I'm going to, if I fuck this up, I'm literally going to like lose my job. You're thinking worst case scenario, and same with the best case scenario. You get there, you stumble a few words, you fuck it up, and then everyone's like, oh, I'm so, you know, I'm proud of you, man. You did well. And you're like, holy shit, that was so much better than I thought it was going to be.
You wake up, you're still alive. You're like, oh,
Exactly.
Funny how that works. Like,
yeah. So you're like, what you think the future is, and like good or bad, it's never actually gets to those expectations of what you think they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's higher or lower.
Yeah. I think a really powerful one, and kind of you touched on it there, is that a few people I've heard in podcasts talk about is like depression massively comes from when we look in the past. Anxiety comes from when we look in the future too much. And I was like, oh, yep.
Yeah.
I can resonate with that. Like and so your point, like you're looking back and you're going, I've wasted this life. That's caused your depression.
Yeah.
Because I wasted my
and
life.
I was trying to escape reality through drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Depressed.
Yeah. And then if you then like for other people, they might be, I know for me, I do get that anxiety of the future because I want to do this. I want to do that with my business. I want to do a podcast. I can't get these guests on. And then in the moment you sit there and I can't do anything that day because my brain's just an absolute mess. And that happens weekly. But it's something you're trying to work through. And I think that's important that like we verbalize these things are normal. Well, not necessarily normal because we don't want to normalize that we want to feel like this all the time, but it happens. But now we start to use some strategies and figure it out. And once you can acknowledge these things, that's how you can start to make a change on those things as well, like the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going into, you know, that anxiety, talking about, you know, that future thoughts, there's a couple of mates and I've been on them as well, as talking about the mushrooms we were talking about, the psilocybin, the magic mushies that we're talking about at the gym. And there's a few guys, you know, I've got onto, they've been on antidepressants. So that's more of the past sort of thinking. But the thing is, because I take microdoses of mushrooms, and it's like, and you know, a full trip can be 3.5 gram plus of dried weight, which is a lot. Like you'll be set in the stratosphere for that. The amount I'm having is like anywhere from 100 milligram to maybe 150 to 200 milligram, which is 1/35th to that. You know, you're having 1/35th. And you're saying you had them before.
Yeah,
you know,
I've been experimenting a little bit with the psilocybin, the microdosing. Yeah. And like just the past few months, really, actually, it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, how they been going?
Really good. I think I explained to someone as well, I was like, I feel like there's a change and an impact. I don't know whether it's placebo, but I don't care because it's free placebo. And I always say this, I'm like, well, even whether it's placebo or not, if it's working, who the fuck cares? Unless that placebo is really expensive. If it's really expensive, maybe find some science on it as well. But which obviously there's a lot of people that come out with a lot of science around these sort of things as well. I know for me personally, with kind of what I'm doing with people that are listening consistently with my app, my business and things like this that I'm working on, it's that creativity, it's that productivity. It's not necessarily from a mental health point of view, although I probably have noticed some of those changes there as well. One thing that I have realized that I probably haven't been able to get the full capability of the microdosing is my poor sleep. And so that's something I need to really rework. And I feel like when I'm on days where I've had much better sleep for maybe 2 days in a row, maybe even sometimes just the night before, and then I have a microdose in the morning, much bigger impact than when I'm tired and I try it. So whenever I've lack sleep, I'm like, don't even bother because it's almost like a waste.
Yeah,
because I really notice it. Like it becomes an enhancement then. I don't like the afternoon. I sit there and I'm like, I don't want to work, but I keep working. And it just feels like it just happens. Like you just do it a little bit more as well. So it's definitely made an impact. And I'm very curious to go further with that journey in the future as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Like you think these little things grow out of the ground and they have literally a dose that you can literally, you know, have a full psychedelic trip if you have too many. If you potentially want to have that many, you can have
Yeah.
that many. But it's literally the science behind it. And like Andrew Huberman, he's never taken them, but he's done a lot of science on it, and all these other podcasters that are doing the science. And the science is actually starting to sync up to the spiritual realm now, and being able to explain why, there's these chemicals in the brain from the mushrooms are actually helping. And for me, it's, it brings me back to such a present moment, and such a, like a microdose, if it feels more than a coffee stimulant, or, something a little bit, you'll feel it if you've had too much. You just sort of a little bit too, there's a lot going on there, and whatever's going on. So for me, it literally brings you back to the present moment. And mushrooms have been around for longer than us. Yeah. So, I'm a pretty spiritual human being, and I'm like, wow, like if these things are coming around and they've been around for that long, and then we've taken them and they chemically enhance what we're doing, like there's got to be something to that. And I'm all for, the pharmaceutical, that they're doing their route, but there's just, that the big pharma and stuff, it's a multi-trillion-dollar business, and you just need to keep going down that road. The doctor needs to keep prescribing for diabetes, more insulin, needs to do, heart disease, whatever it is. I'm a holistic health coach, and, if it's not a healthcare system, it's a, sick care system, and it's just keeping in there. And it's for them, like if you rip off a leg, or you're about to die and you need to go to hospital, they will save your life. But, eczema and these micro things that people have, and it's not a micro thing, it's something that's affecting someone in a major way. Yeah. There's something internally and psychologically, mentally, physically going on there that you need to get to the root cause of. They just putting the Band-Aid on there. But this day and age, man, with the podcasts and all these things, I'm super excited about what is going to come out. Yeah. And that's why I like to, talked about the mushrooms, and this, I'll take the psilocybin and a microdose, and I actually love doing them before gym. And then you've seen me at gym, I'm sort of doing my thing, and I've got the headphones in, and might be rude to a few people, but I'm just in the zone, and it gets me to the present moment. And I want to get the best bang for buck when I'm at the gym. Yeah. When I'm doing legs, whatever I'm doing, I want to be in and out because I've got time with my family. I want to, the whole day you structured out to what you need. And I nearly spend, it can be 2 hours in there, but if I was chatting a lot, I spend half the day in there. Yeah. There's just so much things coming out with this day and age through podcasts. And I love that, you've created the Jordan Checker podcast, because we get to share things that people get to listen to and have a conversation with us. And hopefully there's a few little nuggets in this conversation that we get people will try and actually go down and actually, might hopefully change the trajectory of life and their perspective on life too.
Well, I think it was interesting as well, like how I came about it was very much that open-minded curiosity mindset that I think we started with, saying how like that's so important in the modern day, in any life, but really now with there's so much information and so much, so polarizing online as well, is that when I first heard about it when I was a little bit younger, I just didn't feel ready, but I was curious by it. So, it came up on Joe Rogan a few more times, and then the Hubermans start talking about it. Then some of my mates started to, go on trips, but maybe more in the party sort of sense. And I was like, nah, that's not my scene. That's not what I want to do. And then you hear it a little bit more and more, and then it just felt like the right time. So I think that's good, because some of these things we're talking about today, people may not even action now, but it's in the back of the mind, and it's something to get curious about. It's something to look into a little bit more, because obviously I'm a big believer in don't just take my word for it. Don't take your word for it. Like, it's do your own research, have your own look into anything you're going to do, because it's your body, your mind, your soul, your everything. But plant the seed and just see where you go from there. And like with the medicine route, I think in Australia now it's become legal for PTSD. I think psychotherapy is actually legal in Australia for PTSD. Very expensive, but it shows that the system is starting to acknowledge some of these other medicines that should go hand in hand with the big pharma sort of medicines as well. Because I think it would be ignorant for anyone to sit here and say that these big pharmaceutical companies haven't created some things that have made humans survive a fuck ton longer. But there's still a broken system as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of other things I take. Have you had a kratom or kratom?
No.
Yeah, so that's like a plant that's it's a relative of a coffee plant.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got green kratom, white kratom, red kratom, and that's like I said, going back to one of the questions you asked, what else I experiment with, like mushrooms. One of the things I enjoy my coffee. Obviously, have the bone broth, but the kratom, it's really nice. It's like a nootropic feel. So it's like you have that, and it gets you. You know, it's got a caffeine effect, but it keeps you real like centered and calm as well.
Like not jittery. Some people get like that anxiety on coffee sort of thing.
Yeah, so like there's a little stack I'll take usually before gym, which will be like, you know, I'll have a double espresso, I'll have 100 micrograms of mushrooms, and then I have the kratom, and that's, you know, that's the things I've learned, and I've learned them from podcasts too. So that's you know, you can look it up, kratom, Kratom, kratom. Some people say kratom. It's based over in the Borneo, so it's like Thailand, Bali, that sort of place. But that's another stack I have, and it gets me into this best bang for buck. And obviously, then you've got I guess that's where steroids and all the other things get in, because we're all striving to get the best bang for buck. And I've never taken steroids myself, but there's, you know, I'm not against them or for them. But there's one of those things that depends what goals you want to get, and depends what, you know, you're going to risk and what you're going to do. There's got to be always a bit of a balance for that too. And that's, I think everyone is, you know, that is trying to do the best they can. There's no shortcuts, but there's definitely enhancers, and there's definitely things that you can get. And I know, like, you know, I do that stack of mushrooms, coffee, and kratom, and, you know, kratom, and I'm firing, and I get into that present moment. I have an epic gym session.
I think with some of these things as well is being content with your decisions in the long term. Like there's a lot, say like the steroids is a perfect example. Like it's highly evident that it's not a great idea long-term health. Now, can it be done safer than what a lot of people do it? 100%. There's people that just buy it from some random website, inject and go, I don't know what the fuck it is, and just see what happens. They're the ones that dropped out at 35. But then I know of people, because being in the industry, that are, you know, they're way older and their health seems to be fine at the current state still. Like they're not old, but they're in their 40s, maybe pushing 50s, and they have been on this stuff as well. And it's like, but if you are content with your decisions and what you're doing with your life, and you've, I guess, really honed in on those long-term consequences, who am I to judge? You know, there's probably some things that you could argue, you know, I've done, you know, they might go, that's not great, this is not great, whatever. And I think it, like you said, goal dependent. You want to be a, you know, elite bodybuilder. Yep. You're going to have to, you don't want that. Well, you don't need to. And I think it's just, you know, being open to those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
No judgment.
Yes,
is a
exactly.
really good. I don't know whether you said that directly, but I definitely gathered that in what you were saying as well, that there's no judgment on someone making those decisions as well.
Big time. And I think, you know, people listening to this as well, is you take it, you know, with a pinch of salt, as they say, and whatever you do is your choice. And I think that is the most, I believe that's one of our greatest superpowers as human beings, is the power to choose. Yeah. Because they can choose to judge us talking about mushrooms and steroids, or they can choose to be like, fuck yeah, I'm going to give that a crack. And that's perfectly fine, because we don't need to control them.
Yeah.
And that's not for us to do that either. But you know, in having that choice, and yeah, going down that route is, you know, when you have a choice is like going back to that non-judgment is a lovely way to sit for me, and the way I like to teach my clients and try and pass that message on is like, you've done the best you can, you know, with what you've done, with the knowledge that you've had at that particular time, and you don't beat yourself hard about it. Stop judging yourself, like, because you're the one that's beating yourself up. Yeah. And just, you know, right now you have the power to choose to be a better human. You have the power to ring your mum and say I love her. You have the choice to ring your brother. You have a choice to eat healthy food. You have a choice to eat shit food. You have a choice to come onto a podcast not to. It's all the power of choice. And I think once you understand that, have appreciation of that, then you can be like, well, I can actually choose to do anything in my life. And I'm at work right now, I'm hating it. You can choose to quit that. And it might not be right at the time and place now because financially you've got this and building up. I understand that.
Yeah.
But let's make a choice now. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What can you see yourself in the future? Let's put some goals in process now and go, all right, I'm going to do 6 months of doing this shitty job that I hate my boss, and then I'm going to work myself out of it. Instead of the choice of going, fuck my job, I'm fucking stuck here, I'm going to be here for another 10 years, because you can do that too. And so that's what I like to bring it back to, that the power of choice, because you do have the choice to be, and you know, whoever you want to be, you can be, and you can choose to do it whenever you want, wherever you want. And it's still, I don't want to put the thing as like Lucky Louie, I get to do whatever I like, whenever I like, because I do a lot of that stuff, but you still have the, you know, choice to be really nice to your wife or your partner or your kids, or you have a choice to be snappy at them and tell them to fuck off too, you know. So all these decisions that you have eventually comes back and tenfold, and whether it's good or positive. So yeah, I love just, you know, touching base on that, and if that's changed someone's perspective, because we have the power to choose.
I think that comes back to actually same sort of topic within, say, the medical industries. And so you've got all these big pharmaceutical companies, or you've got these big food companies. I was listening to a podcast the other day, Modern Wisdom, like Chris Williamson. I'm not sure if you know him.
He's great.
I can't remember that guy's name, but he was he was talking massively about mainly the food industry and how they're out to get us, these sort of things. And I think that can be, you know, everyone knows the term conspiracy sort of people in that context. Now, I'd probably bucket myself in a little bit that way. I definitely like to question things as well. So I don't call people conspiracy theorists or whatever. But people that are listening, they know what I'm talking about. And it's like, well, okay, so you've got these big companies, and sure, they know human psychology, and they're coming after us, if you want to get scary words out there, with the foods they're giving you, with the medications they want you to have. It's like, well, you also have the choice when you go to the doctor and they say, take these antidepressants. You also have the choice to be like, no, give me 3 months. I'm going to, or maybe I'm going to take these, but because if that means you're here tomorrow, then that's a good idea. Like I think Jordan Peterson might have actually said this is like, you know, if that medication is what keeps someone from taking their own life, let's take it. And then what we need to do is start doing the work after that. So maybe you take it, but now that person has the choice, or the people around them needs to take them to see someone that's going to help them, therapy, whatever it may be, or play around with the mushrooms if they are believing in that space, and whatever it may be. If it's the food, sure, we're hammered with these artificially hyper-processed foods. You don't have to buy them. You don't have to eat them. Go to the markets, do all these other things. Then there's a layer of like expenses. Sure, it costs a little bit more. It's the time, the effort, whatever. Choices. And it comes back to that as well. So while the system or the matrix, whatever, might be out to get you, you don't have to play into it. Like, especially in Australia, there's plenty of choices to live that healthier lifestyle as well. And I think people can hide, like they use that as an excuse. Oh, but they're out to get me, is the excuse as to why they didn't make the choice to just better themselves and be healthier.
Yeah, we're so lucky in Australia. We're one of the luckiest countries in the world. I'm just thinking about while you're talking now, is just quickly, the question for you is what motivated you to create this podcast? Because I love us having a chat now, and it's just I just want to I'm interviewing the
No, I like it. It's good.
But I was just thinking as you're coming, and I was just like, I just want to ask you, because I think it's the right question to ask.
There's a few things. I'll start with the selfish ones, because I think it's important to be honest. Yeah. I wanted to meet cool people. I wanted to network with people. I see podcasting as a potential career, like that could be monetized in the future, but I'm not in any rush to do so. The non-selfish reasons, I like to help people. I'm a PT. It's what I've done my whole life. I guess you could call it, it's a little bit selfish as well, because helping people, providing cool content, training people, changing lives, that feels good. So you could argue that's a little selfish in itself as well. That's a big passion of mine. That's why I podcast, to deliver and share conversations like this with other people that maybe don't have the connection with yourself, or the others that I can get into circles with, and that circle continue to grow. And it reaches people that maybe just wouldn't have been interested in the past, they see a clip on Instagram and they're like, oh, maybe. And then that helps them with their health and things like that, or aspiring to become a better version of themselves. And yeah, like I said, with my business, like everything I'm doing work-wise, I think the concept Ikigai, you may be familiar with, the Japanese concept there. It was kind of, I always miss out one. It's like what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can make money from. There's one other, and I've completely forgotten it, and I always do. But podcasting and like personal training, or like the nutrition app I'm working on, all came into that. I was like, I will never feel guilty if I start to make $1 off these things, because I know morally I'm doing the right thing.
100%.
And any dollar I make is from helping someone, not from ripping someone off. And that kind of all circles in together, I think.
And you do such a good job, Geordie. Like, I've followed your Instagram and your socials and your podcasts and man, you do a really good job. I mean, if people are listening to this, are obviously listening to you, so they already know. But I just wanted to let you know that
Thanks,
you
man.
do a really good job, man, because professionally it looks really, really nice. And you're just setting yourself up, that foundation of whatever it is. That foundation has got to be concrete, and you just from concrete, then you can just slowly start to build up, you know. And it's because if it's got quicksand or it's mud, something's going to give eventually at the end of the day.
Which I think is where you grab those quick money grabs, or those quick health grabs, all those sort of things. The fad diets, that's where it comes back to those as well. Probably into our conversation we were just having. Is that you want the silver bullet, whether that's from a money point of view, whether it's from a health relationship. Like if you're relationship wise, you just take the first one that, you know, someone says, I want to be with you. You're like, fuck yep, I'll take it. Like, well, that's the quick relationship. That's the quick health trick. That's the quick money trick. They don't last.
Nah. And the people see that you're genuine, and the people can, they can, you know, the bullshit, you know, that people can see straight through the bullshit now. You know, like even like you look at something on AI, and it's like on social media, and it's AI, you can pick it up pretty good now, and you have to, like, it's getting pretty crazy at the moment. But yeah, that's the good thing about, I think, people attracting on social media and stuff like that. And you can use it. It's a knife, and with a knife you can literally cut a tomato, and you can make some, you know, cut some epic steak, but you can kill people with that too. And so I think with social media, the internet, you get both sides, and I like to come, again, non-judgment. And it's one of those things as people use it, you know, and I'm very grateful because I've got my wine, my full of liquid gold bone broth, and my music that I do, musician stuff. Promoting that's fucking amazing, because I can just get that out to so many people instead of texting them directly. Yeah. There's 100,000, whatever, how many thousand people you can get to instantaneously. And it's so good for me. But on the other spectrum, there's 40-year-old guys trying to act as 16-year-old, you know, little boys, and attract 16-year-old girls in. And that's just the reality of it. And so it's like putting a knife into schizophrenia, dude, or putting a knife into myself that loves cooking. You're going to trust me with a knife, aren't you? So, you know, going back to the social medias, you're doing a good job. And I just, I'm very excited about what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years with what's going to, because it's going so quickly at the moment with AI, all these things. And you already, you know, your podcast's been going well. And how many episodes you done now?
This will be 42.
Yeah. So I've got a podcast, The Life Experiment, with my sister and my brother-in-law. And you know, we're only fresh off as well. But it's, you just got to take that jump. And I think with all the things that I've done myself, going back to, I think, you know, saying yes to every opportunity and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the sort of the route I've gone down. Is you just got to leap forward, you know. And for people listening, if you want to have a crack at something, just do it. Like, you know, your podcast is so much more professional than mine at the moment, but we're still getting content out there and something we're passionate about. And the reason we're doing it is because we want to help people. And if I've got stuff to share that I can change someone's perspective, that, you know, that melts my heart. And you get some comment from some person just saying something so grateful, and you like out of one, you know, podcast, and you nearly tear up, and you're like, oh, thank you so much. Like, you didn't even think that comment that you said about whatever it is, that is just worth the hours and hours and hours of podcast. And you would be the same, you know, like
if you can impact one, you kind of like, meh. Sounds cliche, but you're like, job done. Like, honestly, like it's good enough. You know, it's a good start.
Yeah, and so people out there wanting to do stuff like this, like, you know, just have a crack. And if you got something to share and you really want to share it, because literally I think we're going back to communities so massive, and we're designed to to connect and help people. And we've been so disconnected over the last so many decades. I mean, you're 12 years younger than me. So, I've got, a few years of wisdom on you, but what I've seen since I can't remember the 80s because I was 87 was born, but the 90s and 2000s. But then, the last 2 decades, the speed of like social media and addiction to phone. And I think addiction is a massive thing, sugar, scrolling, just looking for that next
just across
hit.
the board, isn't it? Like
is gone up.
I wonder whether a lot of that as well has come from. I was talking to Lucas Owen. He's a naturopath and men's health guy, and he was talking about dopamine is kind of the before the hit sort of thing as well. So it's that build up. It's that, but like we're chasing this dopamine sort of feeling. Maybe some of that coming from our comparison of other people's lives on social media. And so we see their highlight reel. We assume their life is sunshine and rainbows all the time. So then when we go back into our normal life, we're trying to find things that make us feel really, really good at all times. Sugar, scrolling, TV, porn, whatever it may be. We don't want to feel the lows. And that's why there's such a big rise of these addictive personalities. Maybe not the substance itself is actually addictive, but they have that because they're just chasing the high in the comparison to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, we're just speculating, aren't we? It's hard to. I totally agree with exactly what you're saying, and it is that, like you said, it's that dopamine hit is before you actually get that hit, and it's like scrolling that next hit, and that is actually the chemical reaction going in your brain, trying to get that next hit, and whatever it is, whether it's porn, sugar, social media, whatever it is, and the addictions of everything from people, drugs, alcohol to that stuff, but it's exactly the same addiction to being on the phone, but it's class A drug on scrolling is the same mechanism back in the brain,
sort of thing,
but as a as society, it's totally different. But it is exactly the same thing coming, from the brain and the chemicals from the brain.
So what do you like then? Obviously you touched on AI, 18-month-old child. What is your opinion as a father of a young child, like with how the world's progressing with some of those things? Are you nervous, excited?
Yeah, well, the other thing is I have no idea what the future's going to hold because I'm never going to be there, which is pretty cool. I'm always in the present, sitting here with Geordie Checker.
Yeah.
But yes, obviously concerning. But with River, my beautiful daughter, she's 18 months on the 1st of November. And the thing is, like, we've got phones, iPads at home, and she's been learning of this, it's called Miss Rachel, and it's like a play school for kids. But, I know the chemical, and there's a cocoa melon one that, if you don't have kids, you won't know it, but it's cocoa melon's been more, I can see it's like, it's colors, sounds, visuals, and it's very attractive and really addicting. And I've noticed, it just comes on because you put on Miss Rachel, which is really good learning. It's like, she does sign language, she does, all these things. So it's a good distraction for when, for River, but my daughter's learned a shitload off Miss Rachel, right? So it's like she knows, point to your eyes, point to your nose, point to your, all these things. She's only 18 months. And all these other things, which has been an amazing benefit for her. It's like a play school, but it's on the phone. But then the cocoa melon, they do stuff with that. But with the cocoa melon, I can see it's more of a drug. Like I've noticed with River, we don't give cocoa melon to her very often now, just because she literally gets angry when it's not on. Like, and she's 18 months. So like Miss Rachel's pretty good. Miss Rachel's beautiful. She's a teacher. A beautiful story behind Miss Rachel. She was a teacher. COVID happened. She started doing YouTube videos on sign language and teaching, like 6 months, 12 months. Now she does preschool. She's got like one of the videos on YouTube have like 50 million views. Just one. And she's got hundreds of videos. So because the kid, mum and dad have busy and they put that on, but she's really good at what she does. And that she's just hit a niche market in COVID. So she's multi-millionaire, but she's really passionate at what she does. You can see it's awesome. And she's learning. And it's but you can see she's in the clothes and the colors. But then there's a cocoa melon one, which is it's artificial, where it's sort of more AI generated, and it's more colors, more sounds. There's all these things, and it's funny. Like I can see. So I had a mate with a conversation with my mate, and he said, "Oh, is she watching Coco Melon?" I was like, "Oh, sometimes it's like, oh man, like watch later on, they just get grumpy and grumpy." And I didn't really think about it, and then I just tested it with her, and it's like, wow, she just cracked the shits as soon as I turned that off. Like, and so that's just her 18 months. You know, she's not even 18 months, but it's just being aware of giving her the right information and the right, you know, stuff that we can give. But then this is the day and age. What someone listening that's got a 1.5-year-old, and if you're living out in the sticks, if you haven't given them the phone or iPad for a bit of distraction, let me know. Tell me the truth. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have done it, because being a parent, when you got no sleep, you're trying to do the best you can. You need to do the dishes, you know, these things, and they scream their head off. You just do, you know, they scream their head off. You put little Miss Rachel on, she's learning. They, you know, shut up, and they're and they're learning as well.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing, I guess, with the as she gets older, that's the thing is, you know, there's going to be phone addiction there. There's going to be a device addiction there, but I know she's not addicted to it, because I have my daughter twice a week, and we'll go do stuff, and it's, you know, in the same spot, in the same bath, whatever. She's not screaming out for it, but as they get older, they will. So it's just, you just got to juggle it. And for me, yeah, I'm just juggling with it. And as long as she's learning and she's doing all the right things, I'm not going to be the first parent that's going to be concerned about your screen time addiction. And then obviously when it gets into fully, you know, where they're in the room and they're doing all the gaming stuff in there for many, many hours, then it can get, you know, it can get hectic. I've watched a few documentaries on that and a few podcasts where the kids, you know, I feel for the kids and the parents, because it's a full addiction, and that they have full come downs, because they're like, if it gets to that stage, they're from till midnight, you know, sleep for 4 hours, up at 5 a.m, and they're playing from, but you know, you get into that level, you know, as a parent, it is what it is. But yeah, I can't see myself letting my daughter get it to the, you know, spending 16 hours of screen time in the. Oh, she's not going to have a TV in a room for starters. No. And there's going to be a phone or an iPad or something, and then it's, you know, all those things. But as time progresses, you know, you just got to just roll with the punches and know that there's a lot of good with the bad. But I mean, I guess this was happening with TV. When my mum and dad, you know, when, you know, black and white TV come out, and then, you know, the kids come out, and it's like, oh, what's TV going to do? There's always something, you know.
The fucking yo-yo came out the first time, and your parents took it away. Give me my fucking yo-yo back. And it's got like I'm sure that it was just
in the 1900s. There would have been something there that the parents that could have been concerned at, and I guess technically wise, and you know, computers and the internet and stuff is jumped so many leaps up. I think there's more of a concern, but there's always something. And then when my daughter, she has a kid, or, you know, in another 10, there's all the generations, like, you know, you were born in 2000. Yeah. Yeah. So like, you know, people that are born in 2024 was my daughter, or even born in 2010. And then when they're 20 in 2030, 2040, there's going to be another wave of something where they're going to be concerned on, and you just gotta roll with it and try and get the balance as best you can.
That's the thing. I think you know, we're not going to stop these things from occurring and evolving. That's the harsh reality as well. Like you can be like, oh, we should AI make it stop.
No,
it's not.
No, it's already gone.
That train's gone. Yeah,
that stallion is gone.
So now it's like, well, how can we, I guess a really good example I heard someone else talking about, like with AI, where I guess like nuclear was a really good example. Like, you know, you can't go back on that. It is what it is. But what you can do is be like, how can we leverage this for energy, power, all these other things as well? Now, while it can, your example, I guess, with the knife sort of thing is very similar here. It can be used to blow up a whole country, or we could use it to run a whole country. There's such like diversity in that as well. And with the AI, like, it's people obviously like, well, what about when the bad people get it? It's like, well, the good people will also have it. We hope that they have more funding, they have more ability to try and make this thing even better. And so they should even each other out. That doesn't mean it's not a little bit scary and a little bit unknown. It is. And unlike the internet, and I think it is at that step, obviously I don't want to be that guy that was when the internet first came out, because I wasn't, you know, that wasn't around for me, at least in a understanding sort of way. I don't want to have that same mentality that so many people had with the internet. It's going to fucking ruin us. It's this, it's the end of the world, da, 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 da. But I will say the difference is The internet did nothing without you doing something. AI is very different. It ultimately has a brain. And Mo Gawdat, I think he used to work at Google. He talked about this on, and it was that what are emotions? Emotions are really based on past events and things we've experienced. That's emotions. That's how you know that if I say something mean to you, that is something mean. That's how if I punch you, that's probably not a good thing. You understand that might feel bad. Well, what if these AI can absorb so much more experiences? They can read the whole internet. They can be in every camera system. They can do all those sort of things. They're going to be more emotional than us, and therefore they're also more intelligent. That's an interesting sort of path, but we can't change that. It's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you want to do about it?
Yeah, the cat's been let out of the bag. I've been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, and he, his belief is going into the artificial intelligence. Is, I think we just touched based on that at the gym, and it was going into if we don't need to piss, shit, eat, reproduce, but we've got everything with our brain has, that's pretty elite, and we don't need to sleep. That's a pretty epic human being.
I'll take that.
Epic, amazing human being that's fucking on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And you go into aliens or whatever it is, and we've been around for so many billions of years. But you think of that's what opens my mind is you look at all the alien photos and all the things and they've got no eyes, they've got no mouth, they've got these little heads, they're little look like they've been living underground. All these things. Maybe they are someone, from us from the future in millions and millions of years from now. And I don't know. You don't know. And we all don't know. We might never know. But that's, I think, where it's sort of going. But like I said, you'll never know. And I think it's super exciting because it's just, there's so much going on. That stallion that's just got breakthrough, that stable, you can't rein that back in now. She's gone. She's running wild, and that's the AI. It's you can't control that now. That is fully, and so you just have to surrender to it and be like, all right, how can we work with it, and just what's going to be beneficial to us, and see what else happens in the future. Because at the moment, it's out of your control. Yeah,
and I think it's a very real concern to be like, have we kind of
for sure
created the next species that takes us over? I mean, we are
100%. I could see it going there.
We're the call it the top of the food chain, which we are, but that's because we're the smartest.
It's because of we
don't have wings, but we have a brain. We don't have claws, but we have a brain. This thing's going to have a bigger fucking brain.
And can work 24/7 without sleep, rooting, eating, all these things.
The only way is if we fully unplug everything that we could probably stop this, of which by that stage that we go, oh, fuck, we should unplug the whole thing. They would have set up all their things to make sure we can't fucking unplug them. And don't worry about it, we're done. But, you could see that. You could do what we're doing and have a laugh and have a smile about it. Or you could sit there in a corner, rock back and forth and be like, what's the fucking point of everything? I'm like, there's plenty of point. We're not there yet.
That's right.
It may not end up like that. It may just end up being the case that we eliminate so much of the shit in the world and the shit jobs or the poverty or all these things that we can live such an amazing life, and that maybe people in other countries can be blessed to live the life that we live in Australia, and that could be a more consistent thing globally. And even then, people in Australia that don't have it as nice as others, all these things, I'm like, why don't we try and see it from this point of view, and how sure, it's going to take jobs, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean that these people go without something, or does it mean that now they have so much more and they can kind of live just doing what they enjoy and play golf and go to the gym and take, what is it? I don't know. I think you have to come in with a positive mindset, otherwise it's just going to eat you alive.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a guy, Marty Rawson, who's fairly tapped in spiritual dude on our podcast, and he's gone to different sides of different dimensions, and there's a lot of anyway. Go listen to my podcast or the Life Experiment with Marty Rawson. You'll get a good gist of who he is. But he's very excited because he's very tapped in spiritually, and moving into the next dimension. So going into the third dimension, we're already in the third dimension, but the fourth and fifth dimension, there's so many different dimensions in this planet. And you're not aware of those other dimensions because we're not in it. So you can get there through breath work, through psychedelics like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, psilocybin, ayahuasca, all these things, and they can put you into that dimension very quickly, but they'll suck you back into, or through meditative state and breath work. But going back to Marty Rawson's, and he said we're moving into the fourth and fifth dimension, and people can say it's woo-woo, whatever it is, and it's exciting because what that means, it's going to be leaving a lot of shit behind, and exactly what you just tapped into there, all these people from other countries living the life that we can live, and there'll be a lot of equilibrium, there'll be a lot of balance, and there'll be a lot of love, and it'll be coming from, like, we're having this conversation and we're definitely on the same page, and just, hearts connected, just doing a thing, and there's no negativity, there's no anxiety, and like, why can't the whole world be like this? At the moment we're in the third dimension, and that is yin and yang, that is black and white, that is dark and evil, and that is light and heaven. So that's what we're on at the moment. So going into the fourth and fifth dimension, he talks a lot about, and it possibly could be in our lifetime, but we'll find out. But wouldn't that be a fucking amazing world to live in, where everyone's just connected and having a laugh and loving each other, and everything's all, all hunky-dory? Like, I just find that, I'd love to live in that world.
It would be so good. But then I wonder, once again, like, coming into just the curiosity around, like, what does that look like? How does that happen? I go, if we know so much about also like generational trauma and things like that get passed on, hatred is one of those massive ones. How do we eliminate that? Like, you've got what we see in the world right now. There's so much of that, whether specific events or not, or whether it's even in this country still. Everywhere in the world, there's hatred for reasons, for things that we've heard people say, and we adopt that belief just purely based on maybe what our parents said, or a friend or a teacher. They made a snark comment or whatever it was about a race or a gender or a religion or whatever it is. It's like, how do we actually... Because that's still human. No matter what happens with a fucking robot or a bit of AI, like, that's still in our brain. So how do we, like, that, I think, is the big challenge. It's like that we've laid the possibilities out from a technological point of view that can really help disadvantage. Hopefully it stays cheap and people don't abuse the power of having these things and then make them expensive and then be like, nope, you can't have them. If everyone has it, we are still human at the end of the day. So how do we...
Yeah, well, going back to like what Marty Rawson was saying, the way I understood it was because going to that, third dimension is that vibration of feeling hatred, of feeling that negativity, of feeling judgment. And you can have the choice to go down there, but then that's the third. And then the fourth and fifth dimension, that's when you're coming up and you're rising above it and you're connecting to all these levels. So like, I've talked to a few other guys, and you've got the universe, which is uni, one verse, then you've got the multiverse, there's the multiverses, and there's all these things. And there's infinite possibilities of life throughout your life and decisions. So that's what I feel was happen, like that question you were just asking then. This is only my perspective, and what I feel is there's a possibility where you can go back down to that third dimension and there's hatred, there's judgment, there's fuck you, there's all these things. And then once you rise to those above dimensions, it's you're above that.
Like the enlightenment of it.
And there's a frequency that you're on that frequency. And exactly like a song and a musician, like you have two chords that blend in perfectly. It's just harmony. It's just fucking lovely, right? And then, but when they're off, it just can't attract. And same, we're all energy at the end of the day and frequency. So that's the way I sort of see it coming back for some musician feel and looking in that perspective. And then once you rise to that frequency, but I feel like you're going to be going back to the third dimension and fifth dimension. So there's going to be like this things. And I don't know really what's going to happen, but that's the way I sort of see it and understand it, because I don't know how the world just can't change and just go into the fifth dimension. Everyone has to be extinct. The whole world has to be gone. And then it's the next minute, then it's, it's heaven on earth. It's all that. So that's why I'm super excited, because I don't know what's going to happen. Like, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff coming out with AI and podcasts of like the best thing about the podcast. We can talk about this openly, like, try and talk about this on the news.
No one cares.
We'll get shut down. Or they wouldn't care. And secondly, we get shut down. So we can talk about mushrooms and we can talk about AI and we can talk about different dimensions, and people that want to listen can tune in, and they don't want to listen, that's fine too. That's their own journey.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Just
know.
being open-minded to the whole situation.
Yeah.
That's a very
and I get that
point.
from you a lot, and which is
Yeah.
awesome. And I think that's why we gel and have a good conversation, is because we're both on that same wavelength. And it's like, and I've listened to some of your quotes and your social media and stuff, and I do love that, coming from, like that quote, I'm not going to say it, but it's, putting on a pedestal, that they've worked their fucking ring off to get to there, and you're just here. So, it's just put in the reps and put in the time, and then someone will be looking at you on the pedestal, and then you can just guide them through, and then just say, just put some more reps in, and that takes 10 years. And I think that post you put up on social media, the 6 years, and I said, I'll just text you. I was like, that people see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see 6 years of Geordie Checker working his fucking ring out to get to there. And, and then when you're 34, there's going to be a cool photo where, not physically, but whatever you're doing.
That's
you might
just
have
a holistic sort of, isn't it?
It might be a $1 billion business, might be $1 million business, might be $100,000 business, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you've worked hard to get to that point as well. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think we're going into a time where you just have to be so curious, but also try not to get swept away, because it is moving so quickly. So don't try and understand it all. Don't try and know it all. Almost like roll with it sometimes as well. Like, I know I fell into a bit of a rut, like where you're trying to find the latest AI tool or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, maybe this for this and that for that for making photos, that for video, or ChatGPT. Oh, this new one came out, it's better than, and it's like, just calm the fuck down. You can't spend your whole life trying to figure out the best AI tool or whatever it is. They're gonna come, Just now, you could probably ask anyone, and they know about ChatGPT. Good reason for that. It's probably the best one. Use that. Like, it's kind of like, as a general rule of thumb, if you want to start to experience and get amongst these sort of things, use those mainstream ones that people know are trustworthy. Well, to the best extent probably, and start to experiment. See what these things do. Say please and thank you, so that when they take over, they like you.
Absolutely. Did you do any social media background yourself? Or have you do all your own social media?
Yeah. So I probably started posting. I was like 16, 17, with like some of my javelin stuff, which was interesting because like I resonated a large portion to your athletic journey, I guess, with golf.
Yeah.
And a point I actually came to my head during that time was not just people that have, even if you hadn't made it to the level you had made it to then have that pulled away from you. It's hard just when you thought, my whole life, if you ask me, what are you going to do? I'm going to play sport. And then I got to a stage where I was like, that's not happening, is it? And I was like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
That's all I've ever known. Like I reckon in school, I was like 12 times a week training in games. Didn't have time for a part-time job, whatever. Like that was my whole life. And so hearing you say that, I'm like, now while we, may have been, it's not the same journey, of course. I was like, yeah, I resonate massively with that. And then I went back to javelin for a couple of years and it didn't work again. Luckily, it was kind of my second time around where I, pulled myself away from it. But still, like I think still now, even it's probably 5 years after I realized it wasn't a career that it was going to happen for me was sport. I still sit with it like weekly being like, oh, it feels like that was what it should have been, that was my whole life. Like, and it's interesting, I guess that, there would be people that even just played school footy, thought that sport could be their whole life, finished school and went, fuck, that's not the case.
When did you stop playing javelin?
I was probably, year 12, I stopped for the first time. So I was 18. Few realizations. It was kind of, one, probably not going to be good enough. You have to be honest with yourself sometimes with things as well. And especially even if I am good enough, it's not a sport that I can live off of. And at least not unless you're like kind of the top three and define live off of, not the life I wanted at least. And I was like, I was, had to be content with that decision. And then after a couple of years as a PT, I have that flexibility of schedule. And I was like, this is great. All my clients are in the morning. I can go back to training. So I went back and tried it again, saw some progress, but once again, did it for another 2.5, 3 years. And I was just like, no, this is every time I was at training, all I could think about was work. And so I kind of felt like I wasn't present in that moment, and it just wasn't the right thing to do. Doesn't mean it was, even though it wasn't the right thing to do, and my preference was to be doing work, podcasts, all these sort of things, doesn't mean that it obviously wasn't a hard decision to make and still sit with you, kind of go, fuck, like, that sport thing was a real thing. And I think now I'm starting to have this realization around business is that, okay, I've realized that I really don't want to be just stuck indoors all the time. So now I'm having this other challenge of being like, oh, fuck, like I had this awesome lifestyle where I was in the outdoors. My dad's a PE teacher, a strength and conditioning coach. My sister was a professional soccer player for 15 years. Mum was a netballer and fit as hell of a family. And I always remember, like, Dad would always be like, like, sure, yeah, we can make more money, we could do more things, whatever, but I don't want to be stuck indoors. And I feel like that's starting to rub off on me now, and I'm getting a little bit itchy with some of the things. I'm like, how can I do this and still be outdoors doing all those things? Like, it's funny how it all kind of comes together as well.
Would you go back to javelin?
Not again. No. That ship sailed. Also doesn't help that, like, I had a bit of a tear in my shoulder in the end, and I probably couldn't throw anyway. But a big part was I wasn't good enough, and I had to be realistic in that I probably wouldn't get good enough. And my priorities were different. But now, like, I've kind of picked up doing a bit of jiu-jitsu, and I feel like that's nice. I'm not taking it like full-blown serious. I don't want to be the world's best. And that was a really cool, like, paradigm shift for me as well, was, hey, you can do something and not need to be the world's best at it. Whereas in the past, everything I do is like, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be bigger than Joe Rogan. I'm going to have the Apple of fitness is my app. That's still a goal of mine. But I was kind of like, I can't do all of it. I can't be a professional athlete as well. And so I had to get realistic. And so I do jiu-jitsu for my health. It's good. It gives me that edge of competitiveness that I had from sport. I play golf once a week. Not to your standard, that's for sure.
We didn't have a game then.
Yeah, well, you'll be like, where the fuck did he go? Just on the other fairway, mate. I'm just getting my ball. But like that's I have to take that deliberate outdoor time because I know how important that is for my physical and mental health as well. But yeah, it's a real interesting push and pull of priorities and what brings you that content feeling as well.
But you got to realize, like, the javelin has, that hard work and the passion and what you've done there has led you to the person that you are today.
100%.
And, I'm sure you understand that and sit with it too, which is, you've let the javelin go. Like,
it's done.
100%, gone.
It's probably, the javelin is 100% gone. I still get those thoughts sometimes though of, I feel like I was supposed to be an athlete.
Yeah. Yes, gotcha.
And I still feel the beauty is I train like I am.
Yeah.
I eat like I am.
Yeah, you
I don't fucking sleep like
jacked,
I am, but I'm
and
trying to sleep like
there.
I am. I'm doing these sort of things because, one, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just never know. If I keep my body like this, like, hey man, you never know what fucking sport or opportunity may come up. But I've let go of the specific sport and I just want to still see myself as an athlete because I think that's important for my overall health.
But you are an athlete. You're just not an athlete that is something like depends. Competitive athlete. And do you miss that competitiveness?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of the jiu-jitsu as well.
Nice.
Is I go there 3 times a week and I'm competing with someone. It's not a full-blown competition. I might do a comp in the future as well. I've only been doing it for about 4 months, but it's the fact that I'm there and it's like a 1v1 I'm versing. Like that was probably also the challenge, a bit of a hole from like a sport like javelin. Is you go out there, you throw, and you got to be nice to everyone. And that sounds horrible, but I don't want to be nice to everyone. I'm versing in to some extent. Like I'm there to win, and so there was none of that kind of. Didn't feel like a battle. Felt like it was. Oh, do your best, and I'm like, that's nice and that's great and it's good advice to have, but I want to win. And some people will be like, that's a bit of a demon. Maybe you're chasing there as well. I'm like, probably, but it's a demon I like.
Yeah, and using it for your benefit.
Yeah,
that's a thing. It's people will say that as a demon and it's a negative thing, but it's for you. It as long as it's healthy, and it's the ego, and it's saying it's like, oh, I'm trying to get rid of the ego. I'm trying to get. It's like, no, fucking that can never ever happen because the ego is you, and it's a part of you. Always will be. The thing of the ego. Peter Crone is a fella that I listen to, and he says doesn't want to be helped, it wants to be held. So it's just a slight change of words, but it's literally the ego just wants to be held and just wants to be heard. And so then when that ego, that is a part of that competitiveness, because the ego is what it's about, and you can use it to your benefit. And I think, people I've talked to a lot of people. It's trying to, I just need to get rid of my fucking ego and all these things. I'm like, firstly, that's your ego saying, I'm trying to get fucking rid of the ego.
It's like talking to itself in the
And they're
mirrors.
like, oh, no shit. so firstly, your ego's already fucking won. And secondly, let's just sit with the ego and just like make it part of you and know that it's sitting there with you, always going to be with you, and thank the ego for really being driven, for sometimes doing stuff you didn't want to do, because that was one that dragged you out of the ass, out of bed when your fucking ass was feeling sore and everything. So with you, it's just and you're doing all the right things, and like I see it as a very healthy thing, because to me, you are an athlete, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I can see you're an athlete. And that, you know, the competitiveness is what you've been missing, but the going into the jiu-jitsu, that's awesome. You've found that nice little niche, because that gets that endorphins going. And
is that something that, like, when golf, obviously professional athlete, once again, is that something that you also battled a little bit with, whether that was early days or even now still, you still have that? I mean, you're still playing golf, but obviously it's not what you thought it was going to look like. Is that something that still lingers? Yeah,
I've been lucky to go back to, I've been playing some competitiveness on like amateur circuit. So these guys, these guys are turning professional, they're anywhere from 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. There's me, the old fossil at 36 playing these tournaments. I'm not winning these tournaments, but making my own. And back to the question, yes, did miss that competitiveness. And I think that's when I got lost. And I think the competitiveness for me was that drive of literally just going hard at everything. Yeah. And that was like I said, I was on X Factor. I was making barista coffee at this cafe. I was making wine. I was doing the bone broth. I was playing music. I was just doing all these things. And then so funny, because I had a lot of mental stuff going with the golf, that I had a long anxiety, and it all come back to embarrassment. For me, it was embarrassment hitting really bad shots and not getting to, because I was at such a high level, and then like a few comments, and it was just the same thing, but it was in my head. Remember what we said before? So embarrassment, and then just feeling ashamed, really. And so then after
ashamed that you didn't make it to what you thought you were going to?
A feeling ashamed of that. I felt like I was always going to get to that level. And I was just ashamed I didn't get to my full potential, and probably to my mum and dad, to my wife and all these people. And when I sat down and had the conversation with it was the furthest thing on their fucking mind. They're like, Louis, as long as you're happy and like we love you, we don't care what you do. You tried, we know you put you all in and it just didn't work, and it's okay. So same sort of thing, that perspective change, the Tony Robbins stuff is like, wow, I've just got caught up, and all my closest people I thought were just I felt ashamed to even talk to them. And then they're just like, they've got the biggest heart, love, hug. It's okay. Well, no matter what you do, you'll be okay. We got you, you know? And so that for me, it was really tough at that time. And then that's when, obviously I went hard at all the 2-3 years of doing the things that was just explained, the bone broth, the full liquid gold, the music, the wine. And then golf, I started playing golf, and I didn't have a status because I was the people that were playing didn't really know me because I was a junior, and then I come through. So I didn't have the status anymore. So I didn't really have any pressure. So then that's when I started going down the health coaching and doing the perspective change and understanding, like, no one gives a fuck about what you're doing, really. They're all caught up in their own head.
Just like you were.
Yes, exactly. And that's what that funny thing is. I like talk to a few clients, and I'm like, if you go into a party and there's 10 new people, and you're starting to shit, these guys have got better status than me. I'm not sure if I can talk to them. What if I can't relate to that person? She looks hot as hell. He's ripped as hell. This is all you're thinking. You go into that room. That's everything you're thinking about. Every one of those people are thinking the same thing, and they don't give a fuck about you. So you go in there and you're worried about 10 people in this room that you've never met and you're trying to connect with. And so that girl's going, oh my God, he looks so hot. He looks so wealthy. She's smoking, blah, blah, they've done so well. So she's not she's not even looking at you.
No.
Doesn't realize, and then you have a conversation. So everyone's caught in their own head, and then if you can just let that go and say we've all got insecurities, we all aren't perfect, we're all doing the best we can. Let's just have a conversation. You can get in there, and then everyone eventually once you get in there, you have a conversation. Everyone gels anyway,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have people that really connect, some people that don't connect. But going back to, I was caught all in my own head. And then, so now going back to golf, I'm actually playing competitively now and playing some of the best golf I've played.
How good's that? Just because that lack of, you're just like,
and
on the tee box, you're like,
because as an athlete, your muscles actually have to be relaxed as hell. Like you look at a gazelle going, chasing something and going for its life in slow-mo, those muscles, as they're flowing, they obviously get tense when they hit the ground, but they're just so relaxed. They're so relaxed. And you think of a baseballer, you think of a footy player, if you're tensed, that microsecond of timing before you hit that ball is going to change that trajectory of the ball, and you're going to miss the target. Where if you're fully relaxed, and that's gone back into I'm doing breath work with my golf now, and I think that's what's helped me as well. Not just the breath work, but all the things, the different perspective. I'm just a washed up 36-year-old that plays off scratch and can give the young guys a bit of a run for the money, but still can play at an elite amateur level. And try and knock off a few pros here and there when I can, but that's still really high level golf. But I'm just fully back into and just loving it. So I'm back playing competitive. So it's gone full circle, and it's taken. It's been happening the last few years, last 3-4 years, or since 2020. I sort of from 2015 to 2020 was when I did all that sort of experimenting and going into and setting up the businesses. And now the last 4 years, it's started all to full circle and coming back into, I'm just really enjoying golf and putting it into life as well.
I think that's so cool, once again, for you to express, because I know looking at the analytics of kind of people that listen, it's massively 25 to 40 seems to be like the big age.
Yep.
And I think that's going to hit home for a lot of people, is kind of just like, things do come in cycles, in chapters, in waves. Like, you go through these highs, these lows. It's the whole this too shall pass. And while you're in it, it doesn't fucking feel like it. That's for sure. But it does, especially if you make the right choices. Like we've said today, a lot of these things come from choices and understanding that it might be in your own mind. And once you can start to make those movements forward, then you start to reap the reward on the other side, like you are now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And going into that on a spiritual level, I feel when I started to open my mind and be say yes to every opportunity, gratitude energy starting to go out there and feeling very lucky, so much started to fall into my lap. And I've been, a witness and an example, living example of, we live in over $1 million house that we've finished building, got a sauna, 2-story, beautiful family. I've got the businesses running, and, I want to improve them and get them out to the bigger audience as well, which is happening as well. But I feel very, very blessed, but at the same time, I've worked my ass off and been open to that, and the right people at the right time have come into my life, and I'm a true massive believer in that. And whether you're a spiritual person or not doesn't matter, but if you're listening to this, just know that if you put that, it's not airy-fairy life's epic. There's that vocal there, you can't feel the energy. But if I go, fuck, my life is fucking amazing. I can just getting tingles now just saying that, because I feel that. When you feel that emotion and feel it through, there's a feeling of the quantum field, and that will come back to you, and someone and something and some people will come into your life at the exact right time when you need it. Sometimes it's not, you feel like it's not the right time, but it happens. And, we've had, my wife and I, we've had some, pretty hardcore stuff happen to us a few years ago. And that was a really good awakening for me, because I'm going down this spiritual road and think I've got my shit sorted. And then it was the universe pretty much just slapping me with a 4x2 across the face, knocking me out and saying, oh, you think you got your life sorted, Louis? Deal with this one.
Have this, yeah.
and then I had to sit with it and deal with it for 18, 2 years, and then we've got through it, and we've turned it into gratitude now. But that it's one of those things. The life and the universe will present you with people and circumstances where you're not free. So there'll be stuff in your life where, and that for me, that wasn't where I was free. So that's took me a bit of time to realize that, yeah, all right, well, I'm never really going to have my life sorted, but if I can keep putting the good energy out there and keep being the person I want to be and love my wife and love all the people around me, things are going to fall into my lap. And since then, I live a very lucky and blessed life that I get to do.
Which I think is a really good point there, finishing on there, is that you're still, these things aren't just coming to you for no reason. Like whether you're in a shit spot, it might be because you took the initiative to just do one thing to try and get out of that situation. Maybe you spoke with someone, maybe you bought the book and you started reading it, listen to a fucking podcast, whatever it is, you start to generate that energy and then things kind of reciprocate and come back as well. If you just sit there in the corner and be like, just waiting for that thing to come. Just waiting for it's not fucking coming. Like, I mean, once again, you may disagree, but in my opinion, from my experience, from once again, people be like, Jordan, you're fucking 24. Yeah, but I've talked with a lot of people that have had 50 years life experience on me, whether that's from PT or podcasting. I've talked with a lot of people, so I'm not just living through myself. I'm kind of living through their experiences as well, that I kind of regurgitate a little bit. Is that you to have the right people come to your life, whether that's partner, friends, business opportunities, anything. It's like you still have to be pursuing something and not necessarily chasing, but moving. And then those things they start to come along the way. You're walking, and then you're like, oh, opportunity. Take that. Say yes. And then that's where it starts to happen as well. It's not because you're sitting in a corner fucking waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, well, it's like, that car going from 0 to 60, it takes a lot of fucking energy for that car to get to 60. But once it's going 60, unless it hits a rock, unless it hits a brick wall or something, it's going to crash. But then that momentum's going, and then you can see what's going on the road, and you can see exactly what's going on. But it takes a lot of energy to get going. But once you're on that and that taking action, if you're sitting in that room and you're just waiting, come on, universe, throw me something here. Light bulb would probably hit you in the head and fucking tell you wake up. But once you get that momentum going and you go, that's the thing. Like literally, you're sitting in the room, you're like, fucking hell, this is blah 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 blah. Go for a walk, go down the cafe, put some good feelers out there, and I bet you in that day, don't try and expect something to come to you, but you'll have a conversation with someone, or social media or text, or someone, a bird, or fly past, or something that will make you look up to a sign or something, and it will just trigger something, and the universe will literally give you exactly what you need at that point. And if you're just sitting in your house or whatever it is, you're never going to get the opportunity.
You need that stimulus, don't you?
That's right. And then you just keep moving and you're just chipping away. You're not trying to search for it. You're not trying to bring it straight into your life. You just got to be opening and willing and able, and it will fall into your life at the exact right time. And it's that's the advice. That's all the advice I can really give.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I see that with even pursuits I've had in the past. Is you start to be like, there's the same thing that things come into your life as well. Things don't happen for a reason. Business failed for a reason. Sport failed for a reason. Like it doesn't feel good. And like now, I'm not a believer that the whole everything happens for a reason. But because I think there's some look, maybe rewind.
I totally
there's
agree
like
with
I don't know, like sure. But even then, I think in the darkest of things that can happen to someone, like really, really dark, you're still going to have so many amazing lessons from it. But telling someone that it happens for a reason is a shit way of approaching it, I think, because they're going to be like, yeah, mate, thanks for the support. That means a lot. That's fucking useless.
Yeah, thank you.
But like, like you said, going through, whatever you went through and everything you say in the past with your golf and all those sort of things, they did, and now you, like you said, you are who you are because of those things. So in hindsight, in the future, eventually you can look back and see that. In the present, it's probably not a easy way of thinking. But like, I'm so grateful for the businesses that I thought when I was 19 years old were going to make me a fucking millionaire. I'm so happy that didn't work, because I wouldn't be pursuing what I am now, and I wouldn't have the skills that I have now. I know, say, for my business, that like the businesses that I tried in the past in a very similar field were very much attached to me and me wanting to be the brand, and now being able to step away and not have that, the huge upside to those things as well. So like if you can just withhold a little bit, there's good things coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to, I totally agree. I used to be everything happens for a reason, but I didn't really even understand what I was saying when I said that because I was such an optimistic person and such an open-minded person. Beautiful quote by this fella, Peter Crone, that's like they call him the mind architect. Anyway, going back to everything happened, not for a reason, his quote is, what happened, couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. So, and I've said it a couple of times in a podcast, but yeah, the quote is, what happened, couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. So it's a bit of a slap in the face, but at the same time, you don't need to find a reason. The reason is it's the past and you can't change the past. So it happened, and yes, it did happen, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't, because that's exactly what was precisely meant to happen, because that's why you and I are having a conversation right now, because we are in the moment, and this is the present moment. When this is downloaded to people, it's not going to be the present moment, but
it will be to them, I guess.
It will be for them. And so that exactly. So, and yeah, go look up some Peter Crone stuff. He's
great. I see him on socials all the time. Follow him. Yeah, he's amazing.
He's epic. Just that perspective change, and totally agree with you. If people want to find a reason, they can. But like when I've gone through some hardship, and it was like, yeah, I don't need to really find a reason because it just happened. And now I live that life, and it just puts me in the present, and it really just lets you go of trying to find the reason why that did happen, if it was good or bad. And the thing is, like with your, being an athlete like yourself, and I was trying to be a pro golfer, I'm so grateful for that, exactly what you're saying, because it's led me to going down to being in that rock bottom place of going, fuck you, Tony Robbins, you don't know anything about my life, and you just think things can just change like that. Yeah, right.
Say it to my face.
Yeah. And then the next morning, it was literally the boom. I've just gone, and then from 2015 to now, we're nearly in 2025, 10 years later, I've got my broth business that I do, fasting. I've got all, music. I've got a lot of things. A happy family, live in Glenelg, and it wasn't for that. So do I say golf was a failure and I wish I should be on the PGA Tour making millions right now, or am I so grateful that I am living a fucking fulfilled, amazing life? Because if I'm making $100 million in the PGA Tour, I probably actually wouldn't even be that happy. I mean, it would be fucking amazing, but I'm not sure if I'd be spiritually, you
wouldn't be the person you are today.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. And the other thing is, hypothetically, I don't even think about that. Why? Because it's not happening, because I'm here right now. So, and the thing, there's a lot of, I think Peter Crone talks about that. He talks about, so if you did this and that, do you reckon you would be here now? And he goes, no. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, because it's not fucking happening, because I'm here right now. So change the subject. That's hypothetical.
Like,
and that can never happen, because it can't, because it isn't, because we're here right now. Yeah. So it's another good thing to people listening. If you're thinking hypothetical stuff, guess what? It's just wasted energy, because hypothetically, cool, but it's not, because you're here right now. But future thoughts, yes. All right, maybe we can do something in the future. All right, what can we do now to change to make that future come into where we need to be?
I always find a really simple 2 words that I ask myself whenever you're going through something. Maybe something's happened to you, whatever it may be. You go, what now? Because you go, once again, was it good? Was it bad? I don't know. What now? That podcast guest said they didn't want to come on anymore, or they said, nah, we'll come on in 10,000 when you got, like I had a guy the other day. Nah, once you got 10,000 subs, I'll come on. All right, what now? Oh, 10,000 subs, let's do it. That's what's now. That's what's to do. Yeah. That's the work to be done. How do you get awesome. You have a business issue. What now? Like, you cannot change the fact that has happened. You can't change the fact that you are 20 grand in debt. That's done. What now? And I think it's just like, at its bare bones basic term, then you go down the rabbit hole of whatever needs to be done. But it's just such a simplified way. Don't overcomplicate. What now?
I love that. I haven't really thought about it like that before. And I think that just brings back to no emotional, like someone saying, until there's 10,000 subs there, you can get emotionally and your ego can get deflated. You can be like slapped in the face. And then at the same time, this is like, what now? Oh yeah, 10,000. And it just takes all the emotion shit out of it because he's a realist and he's probably, and that was exactly what was meant to happen to you right then because it did. But secondly, because it's given you a kick up the arse of like, if this is where I want to go, and you don't have to go there either. That's the cool thing. So but if you want to go, this is what you need to do to get that guy. And do I really want that person on there? Maybe I don't, maybe I do. But at least, all right, what can I do? What now?
Exactly.
That's epic, man.
You sat with that decision that you could, you might reassess. Like you said, you might be like, actually, that's not what I want. So now this is where we go.
Yeah.
Or now this is where we go. And I think that's really cool. It becomes that new path where you get to make that next choice.
Yeah, man, I'm taking that on board 100%. And going back to words, this one's really good because it's literally one letter, and it's instead of saying I got to, I get to.
Yeah.
And the energy I talked to, I think I did on another podcast, but like I got to go to the wedding, I got to go to the funeral, I got to pick the kids up, I got to go to the fridge, I got to do this. That energy has got to. It's just got that heaviness. It's like, oh, I got to do the. I got to do the podcast with Jordan Checker. I get to do the podcast with Jordan Checker. I get to see my wife at the end of the day. I get to see my children.
Yeah.
I get to play golf. I get to pay my bills. And then you start to go down this road of like, wow, if I get to pay my bills, that means I'm making enough money to pay my bills. That's pretty fucking sick. And there's just these
you've got bills to pay, which means you've got a house and a roof over your head.
And
like
and these little things that's what I love trying to help people change their perspective. And that got to get to is epic. And what I got from you, what now is so, awesome. I love that. It's a massive nugget that I haven't even really thought of, which I get to put into my life now. But that same sort of thing is a lot of these little changes of words and letters can just change the energy. And like, you say, I got to, I get to. Just that word of the vibration of that, you can feel the lightness of get to.
Yeah.
And then you can go down and it's just a bit of gratitude stuff without realizing it. And then if you do that repetition, people are like, why are you so positive, Lou? Why are you doing this? And I have shit days. I have bad days that I don't want to get out of bed. Yeah, I'm a human being. It happens. But I've got all these other little things that are, I get to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. I think that's good as well. It shows like even when you are in such a positive, optimistic mindset, like doesn't mean it's all the time. And once again, I think that's probably back to our old point, talking about the social media highlight reel and why we try and use other means to feel good all the time is because we assume that people feel good all the time, but they don't. Even the people that feel better than most people a lot of the time, they don't feel good all the time still. And I always try and be completely transparent with that as well. And I think that's where podcasts really trump other forms of content as well, because I'm going to take some clips from here and we're going to put them up, and maybe some of it is that part of that conversation as well, but a lot of it's going to be the other things. Yeah, Louis got this mindset, he's got that. He overcame this, he overcame that, he did that. But it's like, in this conversation, he also has his bad days. He also has those struggles. He also has all these sort of things. And that's coming from someone that lives at a very high frequency as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think getting to a place where you're not letting your emotions and feelings like dictate your actions. So that's another good thing I picked up from somewhere was if you're feeling shitty in the morning and you're feeling depressed or you don't want to get out of bed, if you keep feeling them and you go into your body, you're not going to take action. You're going to lay in bed.
Yeah.
But if you're just laying in bed and you're feeling shitty, you're feeling depressed, you don't want to get out of bed, but you just tell yourself, fuck off, Louis, I'm getting out of bed. I can guarantee you, because this worked 100% of the time, if you get out of bed and you're feeling you can't even get your eyes out, have a cold shower, go for a walk, get some sunshine on your skin, even if it's 1% better, you will feel better. And your emotions will be better after that walk, after the cold shower, and sometimes it's 25% better, which is phenomenal. And so you got to nearly try and distract your feelings and emotions sometimes, because that's how I can get, like I said, I do have bad days. But that's one of the tricks that tricks me out of it. Go to the gym when you're not feeling right. Go, and there's a time and place. You don't want to be getting injured and you're really tired and all that sort of
stuff.
stuff.
If you're just like, I can't be bothered sort of feeling, that's different to being like, I'm fucking run down, exhausted, lacking sleep, all of the above.
And so don't let your feelings and emotions take over your actions. And if you can just get action, like literally, if you do 20 push-ups or star jumps or whatever it is, and cold showers, take action on something when you're feeling shit. Look at the sunset, look at the sunrise, whatever it is. I can guarantee you that action will go back and it will connect to the feeling and emotion, and you'll feel better. And your emotion will be either happier, or you'll be more content, or you'll be more relaxed. And that's a massive game changer for me. So if someone gets that one nugget out of it, just don't let your feelings and emotions take control of your actions. And and then if you can just take action, it's worked for me 100% of the time, because 1% feeling better is better than 0%. Most of the time it's like 10, 20, 30%. You're like, fuck, I actually feel pretty good now.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and you're feeling shit before. Like you're like, fuck, all cloudy. And
if you ask like anyone that proceeded to do something hard when they didn't want to do that hard thing, they all feel better after it.
yeah.
Who hasn't? Like, you go to the gym when you didn't feel like it, feel great now. You do a bit of work, and hard work for like 30 minutes, an hour, dedicated, no phone, no nothing. You're like, I feel pretty good. You go that run, you do that breath work, you whatever it may be, you pull the sheets up and say, fuck it, I'm getting in the shower. Whatever. You feel better after.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman had, I can't remember the study they did, but it was David Goggins, that fella. He had him in the podcast, and then he referred a study, and it literally said, you do things that you hate to do. And it's like, if you love doing an ice bath and it's 3 degrees and you're actually really looking forward to doing it, that's not the thing. Like, you have to not want to do it. It's when you wake up at 4 a.m. and you're feeling shitty and you're like fucking cozy in bed and you're like, I do not want to get in that fucking ice bath. And you do that thing and complete it, exactly what you're going back to there. And not just that, but anything, making a speech in front of people, doing comedy, doing something that you really do not want to do and you feel like you can't do it, and you do it. They're saying this thing in the brain that is longevity and making people live longer. And there's something in the brain that gets enhanced and goes bigger and bigger, and it keeps getting bigger. And apparently, that's why I talk to David Goggins, because he always does stuff. He's the king of it. He's like, unless your body, actually gets, cracked in half, because he goes so hard. He's like, you'll live just about forever.
Yeah.
But going back to that, and I was just curious when you just said that, is like, because how good do you feel after you've done something you didn't think you wanted to do or could do, and then you complete it? How you feel amazing, don't you?
On top of the world, like, it's euphoric.
So I wonder if that has got something to do with it. I don't know, because I was just, he's done a study on it, and he was just talking about it. So that was my first time, because you just mentioned it there, and I feel like that probably does have something to do with it. It releases a massive amount of dopamine, and probably release of like, I don't want to do this is not happening, and then you complete it and get it done. When you 100% doubted yourself and you're like, 99% of this I'm not going to be able to do, you get through that, you're like, holy. Yeah.
But I think it's like, that's also like building a muscle, is that you build the strength and the skill to be able to then take that same mentality to a bigger and harder task in the future. Like, what you first initially, use the gym example. You might be fucking 15 kilos on the bench press. You can't even do the bar. You've got the smaller weightlifting bar, and you're like, oh, I fucking can't do it. And then that stress over time, then you have that same, intensity feeling on 100 kilos in 5 years. And the same thing happens with these other stresses and doing the other hard things in your life, is that what first in business maybe was a hard thing, what first in music or golf or whatever it is was a challenge, is now easy. And then so you've like stacked in that way as well. Just like a muscle gets stronger, your mind has got stronger to take on harder tasks. And because that's the only way. Like, if we went into fucking Austin, Texas, to the fucking SpaceX factory and tried to do a day of Elon Musk's work, we couldn't fucking do it. Now, there's the potential that we would never be able to do it, even with the amount of reps, because the dude's just a fucking nutcase.
Alien.
Yeah, he's not real. But like, take that example, is that he also started somewhere, like the point of the don't hold people on the pedestal. They also started somewhere, and they built themselves up over time that they could withstand this extra stress. And I guess that's the same with people that run multiple businesses. At first, they couldn't even run one. Then they mastered running one, and they were able to start a second. They could oversee and implement and put people in different places. they have developed this ability to deal with harder things over time, like a muscle in the gym.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's just building that foundation and going on to that next level. It's like going, climbing that mountain, and you get to you think that's the peak, and you get to that spot, and then you look around, you're like, how good's the view? And then you look up, you're like, oh shit, you really like, you have that gratitude of going, wicked, I've just climbed this for 2 hours, and you look up and you're like, holy shit,
That's
I've got that, holy. Then you get up the next one, and then it's like this never ending mountain.
Yeah.
But you, like, all those little wins and successes, you can't get back at, can't get up to the top like that. It might take fucking 3 weeks, but you can do that in a few hours, you can do that in a few days, and you can do that. And I even listened to Elon Musk, and he was saying, with all the stuff he does, the way his brain does, I think he mentioned, he's like, no one really wants to be in my brain because it's just the way I'm pushing myself is I can't exactly remember his words, but it was something it's like, you want to be the most $250 billion or whatever his net worth is, $250,000 million, which is a lot of coin. But for that, it's something that he doesn't wish upon anyone, which is sort of his words. But he really loves that. He really loves what he does, but he's just said it's just so, he just cannot sit still. But that's what the mindset and that sort of spectrum person you have to be to succeed at that level. And I think putting on a pedestal as well, Mark Zuckerberg, all those guys, they're doing what they're doing. They're doing so good for the world and everything. But you probably don't want to be in their mind. Like, it's one of those things. Good on them, and they've done amazing things. But it's just so. Yeah, it's like to put yourself in their mindset is just, I think you just, within like 6 hours, you'd be like, fuck that, I'm going back to my life. Yeah. Like, I don't care how much money, like that's what it's pretty much Elon Musk was saying. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much money it is, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah. But like for him, that might bring contentment. We don't, he might be content with that. Like just because it's fucking hell.
No, but he still loves it.
He loves living in the fire.
Absolutely.
While others don't. And I think that's, once again, like we don't all have to be like him.
100%.
The world needs people that don't want to be fucking, but also like he's not driven by the money either.
No,
like he's driven because he's so, I don't know if you've read his book at all. I haven't quite finished it, but I started reading it, got distracted by other books. But like, it's really interesting, his backstory, where he's come from and kind of like why he's the way he is. And you kind of go, yeah, nah, I don't want that. Like that's kind of crazy. But at the same time, like I do take a lot of inspiration also from that. Like you can have both. You don't have to just go to the same extent necessarily as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all individual human beings, but we're all connected on this globe as one as well. So it's like Elon Musk has got his part, Jordan Checker's got his part, Louis got his part. We've all got our part. And I think we just got to stick to being the genuine person that we can be, and you do the best you can with what you got. And that is your part. Yeah. And like exactly what you just said, we don't have to be millionaires, don't have to be billionaires, don't even have to be $100,000, whatever it is. If you're beautiful father, beautiful mother, beautiful, whatever it is, teacher, you're contributing to the world in the right place. Yeah. There's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of shit out in the world, but I mean, the younger generation that I've talking to now, from even like the 19-year-olds and the 17-year-olds, now they're getting bored, 2005, 6, 7, 2010 nearly. They're asking a lot of questions on why is the world like it is? Why is there fight? Why is there taxes? Why is there bombing? Why is there torture? Why is there pedophilia? Why is there these things? And I think this younger generation is asking these questions because it's not 9 to 5 anymore. They can't even afford their own homes, doing all these things. There's a lot of questions, which is so good because you got podcasts, all these things. There's not filtered that's coming out that everyone's joining and uniting because they're beautiful human beings. These little stars that are coming up above, and then they're actually asking the right questions. I'm super excited. That's why when you asked about my daughter, the stuff and knowledge I'm sharing onto her about all these things, and the stuff that I do, and everything that my mum and dad, no photo they're on, because that was exactly the path they were on, and they were beautiful people. and I can share on to my daughter with compound interest and Bitcoin and all these things. I'm so excited to see what will blossom out of her life. So I'm super excited. I'm very optimistic because the younger generation are not in the negative mindset. They're a little bit, scrolling and stuff and getting into that addiction. That's a little concern of mine, but that, asking the question and really wanting to make the world a better place is the general energy I'm getting from the younger generation.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of curiosity. And
curiosity is probably the word I was looking for.
Just because we've been doing it this way for X amount of years, why do we have to keep doing it this way? I think like people are seeing some holes in things, whether that's, crypto, good example, financial, institutions, people are questioning. And I think that's really healthy. And it may turn out that the way we're doing it is the right way of doing it, but it just feels like no one had questioned so much for so long that now we're like, well, let's figure it out. Like inflation, what is it? Why do we do it? What is this? What is that? Like asking all those questions, all the things you actually don't learn at school.
School, that's a whole nother, another topic.
We'll be here for 3 days if we go down that path. But like it's, I think it is like it's we because my generation and generations now still coming, we are probably we have the most broad knowledge out of any generation.
Big time.
Now, sure, someone in their 30s or 40s will be like, we have the same stuff. I'm like, yeah, but like when I was middle school, like I had access to the internet already. I was exploring. So my biggest part of my growth, because not many people at like 5 years old are going to be scrolling fucking Google, looking at research articles or whatever. So like I feel like my age is very much the beginning of when you're in your growth years and your knowledge years. And I've only known that. So I'm so exposed to so much. That doesn't mean I'm an expert in everything, but it means I'm very curious and ask a lot of questions in a lot of areas that I would have just in the past been like, it's just the way we do it. And now I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Does it have to be? I think that's exciting.
Yeah. And that I think that even my generation, I'm 36, born in 87. So, a lot of my friends, we're all waking up now. And I think it's that sort of under 50, 45 year age from my age now. So they must have been, but even from 80s onwards, Joe Rogan's, he's 55, so he was in the 70s. So that era, there's a lot of that question, but like we only had, like my phone in the high school was Nokia and there's no internet and stuff. The internet was high school computers, but the big block computers, and this is like end of high school, and then eventually had phone, and then social media come in when I was 20. So that's 16 years on now. So then that sort of question Google and sort of stuff started coming on. But like I think if I started asking questions, really depth questions like 10 years ago. So when I was 26, really, because I was up for myself, really, because I was like, why am I here? Why am I on this planet? I thought golf was my answer. It's not. Yeah. So then you start asking why for yourself, and then you go down, why should we be eating this? Why should we drink that? Why should I listen to this person? And then, I reckon that's where the younger generation, you're right, is if you got all that, you're going to ask the question, why are we getting taught these things at this place, and why? And that question, why, is huge. So it's opening that curiosity for the younger generation is so massive, I think, which is going to be a good thing.
Yeah. And you might get shut down. You might, well, not necessarily shut down if you be like, I think, what if maybe this is the way we should be doing it, whatever, and then like it gets proven wrong or whatever. But like say the pandemic was probably a prime example of like questioning. And it's like, so, relative of opinions or whatever and what conclusions different people come to. I'm like, as long as you are at least asking some questions for yourself, like not just being like a yes. Why'd you say yes? Oh, because they told me to. Think for yourself. Like it's have some curiosity, have some, decency to do that for yourself and for the people around you, I think as well. You may get proven wrong or you may prove someone wrong, but that's not the goal. The goal is just to get to the right outcome for both parties.
Yeah, and it's like I feel for a lot of those people because they are nearly embarrassed to say, why do you get this done and that? Whether it's a 1 or 2 jabs or 3 jabs, I'm not for it. I'm not against it. But then they just don't have an answer for it. They got blackmailed because they were going to lose their job. That's a pretty shitty outcome. And then they only did it because they're financial. And I'm like, the way I see that is just like, it's fucking.
Like you can understand that decision. I can still sit there and be like, I get it.
Mate, if you got
But-
$100,000, $150,000 job and you're going to lose, and it's just, you know, and it's all for the good cause, yeah, 100%. But if you're not asking the question, like, has there been tests on this? Is it going to be good for the long run? Is it, you know, where's this come from? But it was all rushed, and that's, you know, that's the thing. Like, if you can just ask why, is this going to be the right thing? And if they say, oh, we're not sure, or we don't know, well, then it's like, well, I need to ask another question. Who can answer? And if they can't answer, then
If it's
keep
just
going down that road.
regurgitated sort of information, then you kind of like, you got to keep going to the source then.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that people need someone's going to be like, oh, you don't do that when you fucking crack a can of Coca-Cola and ask and da-da-da. I'm like, actually, yeah, I think we should do it in more aspects. I'm not just, that is an example of how we should probably approach a lot of other things to do with our food, to do with our water. Don't worry, it's filtered water as well. To do with all these sort of things as well. Like, we should ask these questions. And so I'm not just saying it in this case because, like I said previously, I'm a big fan of pharmaceuticals still because they are fucking amazing. So you can ask questions though still, and whether it's the eczema you spoke about, maybe as an example, like ask the questions. Maybe that is the best remedy. Maybe it's not. Just ask more questions. Get a little curious about your body.
Yeah, I think, like talking about the pandemic and all that is such a heated topic, and everyone's got their point of views, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, no, it's like saying the word God. If you know, you're putting God on a pedestal, is it the person up, you know, in the pearly gates, you know, the big beard, or is it energy? Everyone's got their own perspective of God, and that energy can be positive or negative. And they're like, oh, without religion, you know, we wouldn't have war and all these sort of things. So it gets real heated with that. But going back to, like you said, you ask the question on everything. And I think I've done that quite well with myself, and even like talking about the water, I've spent $5,000 on, you know, we've got a water filtration system. It adds molecular hydrogen, calcium, and magnesium into the water, actually the drinking water, but the whole house, and is the best. It's such good water. It's better than rainwater. It's got 3 filters. The dude that's hooked me up, he's fully holistic into that. But that's the things I do. I spend $5,000 on that water filtration, and it costs me another $1,000 every sort of 12 to 18 months to fill that. And people are like, man, that's super expensive. I'm like, for my baby, the breast milk that was going into my baby, my wife, and myself. Yeah. And I know the benefits. I've done the research. I've looked it all up. And it's not just the molecular hydrogen in water, but it's actually all the toxins that are coming out of it, the heavy metals,
fluoride,
the fluoride, the microns, all the dirt, all the stuff. That's just one of the things I do. And then, you know, we've got the infrared sauna at home, and I just keep asking questions. That's why I like cold therapy. I like doing the breathing, all these things. I'm always asking why. And if I can prove it and understand it, I'll try and do it better, and I'll try and teach it better as well. But, you know, it's going back to sort of asking the question why. Is like, why do I do that? And really I want to live a long and happy and pain-free life as long as possible. And that's pretty much my end goal for when people say, well, you know, what, because they're like, Louis, you're obsessed with all these things. Why do you do all the things you're doing? Microdosing mushrooms, that's, you know, it's good for neuroplasticity, and there's studies on dementia and stuff now. Yeah. So like, if I'm taking a little bit of that now, there's all these, even into LSD, there's some studies in that coming out. All these things I do is literally to try and, I just want to live a long and pain-free life as long as possible and be as happy as I can be. And that's pretty much sort of where it comes back to. So like, it's pretty simple, but it only happened a few years ago, because I didn't realize why I was doing what I was doing. Like, someone asked me, because I want to feel good. Yeah. And it's like,
why am I like,
no, because you always want to feel good, and then sleep, like all these things. And then I know, like, why am I actually doing these? Why am I spending all this money on all this stuff? And then I was like, oh, well, yeah, I want to hang out with my grandkids. It's to do with family. It's to do with, you know, connection. So I want to be the best version of myself for as long as possible. There's a quote. There's some fella. He said, "Die young at a ripe old age." So
like, you're still doing things. You're
so he's like, I want to die at 120. Yeah, but, you know, and at a ripe old age. So it's, you know, going back to, you know, want to have the playfulness as, like, you know, 5-6-year-old. I want to look like Geordie Checker, ripped as fuck, and I want to have the wisdom as a 80-year-old guru. Yeah. And those 3 things are pretty much what I every decision that I sort of have. But I know you don't drink alcohol. I make wine, so I drink wine. I like having a good time. There's a balance as well, and it's just going to that. And if that's connection with family and friends and all that, it is what it is. So I think that those three, don't take life too seriously. Act like a fucking 6-year-old. Work out, do ice baths, do saunas, eat healthy, look like Jordan Checker, ripped as fuck. That 24-year-old. Even though I'm 36, still working on that. And then, and they have the wisdom of a 90-year-old, 80-year-old guru. That means I'm learning every fucking day. And I'm doing podcasts with you and trying to learn as much as I can off you. And that's those three things, those pillars I live by. And it simplifies things.
Yeah, I think everyone will have their own iterations of what that looks like, but I think that's a pretty good way to live.
Well, so you get to laugh every day and you get to work out every day and you get to learn every day.
Yeah, I think the play one's important. People forget that. I forget that easily.
Yeah.
You get rigid with, no, but this has to be done. I'm like, yeah, but so does taking the piss out of your mate when he shanks a ball on the golf course. That also has to be done. Trust me, because I don't want him beating me, so it has to be done.
Absolutely.
There's a time and a place for that too.
Absolutely, the laughter. I think that playfulness and that is you can, and that's why I like hanging out with younger people as well, because they keep me young, and having children always definitely keeps you young because you act like a big silly kid. But having younger crew, and then an older. I've got so many different friends from any age. I've got 7-year-old mates to younger, so many different ages, and you just learn from each of them, and you pick up off them, and they want to hang out with you because they love your energy, and they pick up off you. They probably learn a fuckload off you, and the same with yourself. I'm sure they'd learn a lot off you. It's a good way to be, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap things up with that. There's been a lot wrapped up in who knows how long we've golfed with that. I'm imagining it's quite a long time. But, for those that, at the start, we're talking about the breathwork, the separate video in the description on YouTube, or it'll also follow through at the end of our conversation now. It'll be put on the end of that podcast so people can follow along with that breathwork. And hopefully everyone enjoyed the conversation, some enlightenment, some curiosity and some open-mindedness. I think was obviously a big goal of the conversation today, and I think was well achieved. So thanks for your time, Louis.
Yeah, thank you, Geordie. It's been a pleasure being on here, mate. And just kudos to you doing what you're doing, man, and creating this podcast and sharing this amazing information. And I feel honoured to be sitting here, mate, with you, hanging out.
It's only round one. There's plenty to come. Thanks, man. Cheers.
Thanks, brother.